If you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you sit down, please, this is the annual town meeting, and we usually have an in memoriam for the town meeting members that we've lost over the past year. So I would like to read off their names. William E. Wallace, Jr., town meeting member, Precinct 1. Aline M. Whiting, town meeting member, Precinct 1. Gregory L. Dumas, town meeting member, Precinct 1. Edward J. Hanlon, town meeting member, Precinct 3. Barbara Go, town meeting member, Precinct 5. Henry Trabucco, town meeting member, Precinct 4. Hiram B. Gibbs, Jr., town meeting member, Precinct 1. Stephen F. Garland, town meeting member, Precinct 4. George G. Ford, town meeting member, Precinct 4. June M. Orcutt, town meeting member, Precinct 3. And Elizabeth D. Johnson. She was a town meeting member in Precinct 1 and Precinct 5. Join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to appoint some counters now in case we have a vote that needs a count. We're going to do this. This is going to be section 1 here. The middle will be section 2, and over there will be section 3 to my far left. The people who count section 3 will also count any of the finance committee members seated at the table here. Melinda at the door over there, and Sarah also, they're town meeting members. For section 1, Deb Du Bois, Ellen Gabry. For section 2, John Stencil, James Stolberg. For section 3, John O'Day, Robert Moffett. If they will come forward to get sworn in. You want the flag? Yeah, get that down somewhere. Just a couple of things before we get started. You should have picked up motions for Articles 2, 3, 4, and 9 that gave more detail than was in a warrant that was mailed out to you. Town meeting members should be seated in front of the divide back there so they can be counted. If you're not a town meeting member, you have to sit in the back section. Please silence your cell phones, or even better, turn them off. If you wish to address this meeting, you must do so only after being recognized by the moderator. There's a microphone located in the front, one on each side, and there's a portable one available if you can't make it down the aisle or if you don't want to come down the aisle. If you are reading the motions, please sign the first line before reading the motion to the audience. And please identify yourself by name and precinct. I guess we're ready. Article 1. I lost my mark. Huh? To hear the reports of the Finance Committee and other town offices and committees, or to act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Hussey.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Good evening, and thanks for your participation in the annual town meeting process. The Finance Committee has completed its review of the town's budgets and CIP for fiscal 2019, which you have before you now. I would like to thank and acknowledge the hard work by our committee, and I appreciate their commitment to adding value to the annual budget process. The $67.0 million budget before you represents a $1.8 million or 2.79% increase from the final 2018 budget. The largest increases in the budget include an almost $870,000 increase in the school department operating budget and a $635,000 increase in employee benefits. The combined public safety budgets accounted for an additional $367,000 increase. Staff additions include 10 at the school department, 1 DPW worker, and 5 additional public safety positions. I'd like to add that funding for and the timing of these additions vary during the upcoming fiscal year. Taxes will be increased in fiscal 2019 by approximately 1.48%, following a 1.26% increase in the final fiscal year 2018 budget. Cherry sheet receipts are expected to increase $987,000 in fiscal year 2019 to $13.3 million. This would represent a 19.9% of total revenue sources compared to 19.2% in the prior fiscal year. All revenue projections continue to adhere to our financial policies, which are conservative by design. In summary, the fiscal year 2019 budget process went as anticipated, with general agreement on Beacon Hill regarding local aid, including another substantial increase in Chapter 70 aid. Local revenues continue to meet and exceed budgeted expectations, and our newly amended free cash policy is allowing the town to address secondary capital needs without additional taxation on residents and businesses in our community. The Finance Committee did request that additional operating reserve funds be added to address the now perennial snow and ice accounts deficit, along with the salary reserve addition as we continue to lose professionals to other towns due to compensation challenges. Warrant articles before you tonight include various standard annual articles, the annual $500,000 contribution to the OPEB trust account, CIP repurposing, and various citizens' petitions and other requests. Regarding the warrant articles specifically, the Finance Committee takes the following positions. Articles 2 through 22, yes. Article 23, no, and I'll have an additional comment on this. Article 24, yes. Article 25, defer to petitioner. Article 26 through 28, yes. Article 29 through 33, defer to petitioner. Regarding Article 23, the Finance Committee's vote, which was 5-0 against recommending, simply reflects our fiscal opinion that taxpayer funds should not pay for the former Auburn High School cupola's upkeep. Although we agree with the article's sponsor, which was the DPW, that there is a safety concern for the deteriorating condition of the monument. Respectfully submitted, Kevin Hussey, Chair, Ann Kavanaugh, Vice Chair, Ed Coleman, Kimberly Holstrom, Mallory O'Brien, Kevin Kennedy, Trevor Sansucci.
Thank you, Mr. Hussey. Ms. Goodrich?
Good evening, town meeting members. The Board of Selectmen is pleased to recommend the budget prepared by town administration and presented to the Finance Committee. The financial policies once again play a key role in the budget process. These financial policies adopted by the Board of Selectmen, School Committee, and Finance Committee help the town to continue its financial stability. The long-term planning has enabled us to look out 5, 10, and even 20 years for the town's needs. The Board of Selectmen makes the following recommendations on the annual town meeting warrant. Standard Articles 2 through 12, the Board of Selectmen voted to recommend approval. Articles 13 through 30, the Board of Selectmen voted to recommend approval. Articles 31 through 33, the Board of Selectmen voted not to recommend approval. Respectfully submitted, Doreen Goodrich, Chairman, Ken Holstrom, Vice Chairman, Daniel S. Carpenter, Lionel R. Berthium, and Tristan J. LaLiberty. Thank you.
Ms. Jacobson? Ms. Jacobson?
Good evening, town meeting members, elected officials, sorry. It's my pleasure to present to you this evening a brief overview, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Many of you have been town meeting members before and have seen many of this, so I don't want to be redundant, but there are some new members, so I want to make sure that everyone understands where your taxpayer dollars go and what we've been able to do with the budget that was approved. So as you can see, town administration is involved in a lot of different areas, some of which you're familiar with. You've probably used our services, and others you're probably not as familiar with. But I will tell you that we are very cautious with the allocation of our resources that we get from you, and we want to make sure that we maximize those resources and leverage other dollars where possible. Some of the things that I just wanted to bring to your attention that happened since last year at town meeting, we have maintained our AA2 Moody's bond rating. We maintained our Standard & Poor's bond rating of AA+, which is the second highest that you can get according to their schedule. The Packagug Golf Course, for a second calendar year in a row, has a net profit. This year it exceeded last year's. The calendar year net profit was $64,753. We completed our comprehensive housing plan and we received state approval for it. We awarded the bid for the 2 vacant elementary schools to Penrose Properties LLC for senior affordable housing. We held a design charrette for those projects. Those projects are going to take a couple of years to get going, but they're moving along nicely, and they're going to be great additions and provide much-needed senior housing for this community. We received a $28,000 grant for a new online permitting system for both animal and building. We secured a total of 44 grants in the calendar year 2017, and we received $556,857 in grant funds. We developed and received approval from the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee for our new free cash policy, which enables us to use 50% over the benchmark, and that benchmark is recommended by the bond rating agencies at 20%. We are in a category, as you can see, of a high bond rating, which allows us to borrow at a lower cost because we get a lower interest rate. Actually, some of the communities that are in our category are at a 28%, but we feel very comfortable with the 20%. So the policy that passed was to allow us to use up to 50% in excess of the 20% reserve. We did do that at the fall town meeting. We were able to allocate some free cash toward one-time expenses only. We also completed and received approval for a Chapter 61A process, Chapter 61 and Chapter 61A process and procedure. This is for agricultural land and farming. It's also, we developed a new Citizens Leadership Academy that started in March of this year, and we're going to be holding that annually. We held for the first ever time a first senior resource fair at the senior center, which provided a number of different vendors for our seniors so they know what programs and services are available to help them. We continued on the process for the master plan, the zoning bylaw review. We, through DPW, built and constructed a new hiking trail at Packagug. It's called the Packagug Hiking Trail at the Pappas Complex. And we initiated an opioid awareness program through a grant in conjunction with the school department, the Board of Health, Police, and Fire. As we say whenever we're standing up here, we have a very strong financial management that we're proud of. We have adhered to those written policies, as the chairman of the board stated. We are very conservative. We have a 5-year facility plan that we keep updating. We have the 5-year CIP, the 5-year long-range budget. We have a very strong health fund, and you'll see that all of this leads to our strong bond rating, lower borrowing costs, able to increase the free cash to reserves and the excess levy, which allows us to be able to fund one-time expenditures when needed, and all of this still while not taxing to the max at Proposition 2.5 levels. Again, the free cash trend continues to grow. This is a positive thing for the town to see this level, and again, once we hit a total level of 20% or more, we're able to use our free cash policy, and at the fall town meeting, we were able to fund a couple of one-time expenditures using that free cash. We also, once again, in your budget, we are allocating, requesting allocation of $500,000 annual appropriation into the OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. This is a really important liability that the town needs to continue to address. When we first started doing this, a lot of communities had yet to take this on, and many more communities across the Commonwealth have realized that this isn't going away. We have to do this. Our stabilization fund has been steadily increasing. You can see on the chart that there are a couple times where it dipped because we actually took money out, which is what it's for one-time expenditures. We did use it for the land acquisition for the Auburn Middle School, and we also used it for a fire tower truck. We continue, and we're proud of our multi-year roadway improvement program. This chart shows you the level of state commitment through Chapter 90 funds, and the town continues to allocate funds in the operating budget and through other sources to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to address our roads. Chapter 90 funds alone will not get us there. We, through DPW, have a long-term plan to reconstruct every road in town, and it costs money to do that. The state does not provide that level, so we need to continue to make investments in our roads. And I should say, as we continue to invest in the reconstruction of the roads, it means down the road, no pun intended, it means in the future, there'll be less need for reconstructing roads because they'll be in better shape. So once you get your roads done and reconstructed, then it's a maintenance program as opposed to a complete reconstruction program. So our total reserves as of March 18 are $33,926,406. This is a combination of OPEB, excess levy, stabilization, free cash, our CIP trust, our health trust, our pension reserve, and the high school gymnasium trust. I just wanted to go back to, I did skip one, I apologize, the self-insured health expendable trust, which is also the funds that come in from the employees for the health insurance that help fund any medical costs that come in through that fund, and that's also very healthy. Is there? Sorry, thank you. And our, lastly on the financial end, the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of our general fund operating revenue. This is a combination, what you're seeing, of stabilization, which is in the red, and free cash, which is in the blue. And as you can see, in 2011, we were at about 5.96%. Our bond rating reflected that. Our bond rating was not good. We were spending a lot of money to borrow at a much higher interest rate. We've made a very concerted effort over the years to increase those operating unassigned fund balance to be in keeping with the Standard & Poor's and Moody's reserve levels, which they keep raising the benchmark. As more and more communities reach this, unfortunately, they're raising that benchmark. They want to see a level of reserves, so communities are less reliant if something were to happen on a state level. So we're proud of where we've gone with this. We're at right now at 22%, 22.45%. So just a little, I just mentioned the golf course, and this will be put on the website, so I'm going to go through these very quickly, the last couple, so they'll be on the website tomorrow, and certainly if there's ever any questions, please feel free to call. I'm happy to answer questions. But we are proud of the golf course. We're glad the snow has finally melted. That should help a little. We were a little upset to see all that snow come in March. We'd rather be golfing. But it is picking up, and they're doing a tremendous job there. Just want to go over a little bit on the grant activity, and I did mention through 2017 we received 44 of the 46 applications that we applied for. So we applied for 617,000, we got about 556,000. For the period from 2011 to 2017, which is the period that we've been tracking it, we've submitted 208 applications, applied for a little over $11 million, received 182 of those grants, and have been awarded almost $3.5 million. From January 1 of this year, 2018, we right now have 10 applications in. That's a little ahead of last year at the same time because a lot of the grants don't become available until the start of the fiscal year. So starting in the summer and in the fall, we'll see an uptick in potential grants that we can apply for. Just make a note of a couple things. They are in your annual report, but Development and Inspectional Services continues to be extremely busy. We're very proud to say that we've licensed 2,481 licenses, which over 2015 is a 94% increase, and that's due to the diligent efforts of having an animal control officer. So we thank you for your support for that, and it is definitely worth it. Building department, very busy. They've issued 1,795 permits, of which 728 are building permits. The rest you can see are different types of permits through the office. Planning office continues on a number of different initiatives, some of which you'll hear about tonight, including green energy initiatives, which are saving the town money and saving residents of the community money. Board of Health continues to offer a number of different programs throughout the year for our entire population. Fire Rescue Department, once again, had a banner year, the most calls they've had in their 100-year anniversary, which this past year was their 100th year anniversary. So we did have some celebrations. We thank the fire department for acknowledging that and everything they've done. But they answered 3,632 emergency calls in this past year. Likewise, I want to mention on the police department, 21,238 calls and incidences. Busy, busy town. So again, we thank you. You'll see in our budget this year, our focus is to create some positions in police and fire that we've long talked about and have not been able to do, and we feel it's time to do that. We need to have the proper staffing to maintain the level of services and be able to be responsive to these calls. Public services, again, the library, the senior center, the veteran services, Auburn Cable Television, consistently trying to create new programs for the community, trying to create programs that are for children, for seniors, for families, and they're all doing a great job with what they have. The Department of Public Works continues to do great things. You can see the roadway projects underway. Right now there's a $1.7 million project that's underway to reconstruct 3.3 roadway miles. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the linear cost per foot, it's very, very expensive to do roads. So they continue, DPW continues in a number of different areas, including the golf course. Community events we held this year, again, Summer in the Park concert series, that will be starting in June. Our Independence Day event this year is going to be on July 1 with a rain date of July 2, and a number of other programs that we continue to run throughout the year, trying to create a good quality of life for residents of this community. And we also continue our communication and outreach strategy, which tackles a number of different areas to make sure we're getting information to you, to the voters, to the residents, to the taxpayers of this community, to keep you informed so you understand what it is we're doing, transparency, and making sure that we get the message out of the projects that are going on. So hopefully you'll have less questions, but if you do have questions, again, don't hesitate to call us. And I mentioned the green initiatives. We're in the third year of our municipal aggregation program. We still came in, when we went out to bid, less than the national grid rate. The Green Community Grant, we closed out a $186,733 grant in February, which allowed us to apply for the next round, which we did get, which was $213,804. That was last year. We're continuing that work. And now we will explain it later, but we have applied for another round for $250,000 to offset the LED lighting that is in a later article in your warrant. Economic development continues to be very strong. We want to thank town meeting members for supporting an economic development position in the budget that began this past January. We actually hired the position and we have someone doing it, started in February. And as I won't go through this, but you know, it's a busy town. We've got a number of different plans that we've spent a lot of time and money on to get into place, and now we need to implement them. Also on business development, there are a number of projects that were completed during the year, a number of proposed projects, and a number of projects that are underway. And many of these will create and generate additional tax revenues and jobs for area residents. It has paid off to put work into economic and business development. As you can see, our new growth history, the 5-year average is $691,973. We conservatively budget a portion of that, a good portion of it, but we remain conservative, but we understand that we are bringing in new revenues through our economic development efforts. And also, we continue our public policy and advocacy. Very important, making sure that we're down at the State House testifying, fighting all the time, either opposing legislation that's going to have a negative impact on the town or supporting legislation that will help us. And lastly, our strategic community partnerships. We continue to look to partner with local businesses, local organizations, individuals to try to balance out and leverage the resources that we put in through our budget and make sure that we can actually provide more than what we're budgeting for the members of our community. So I want to thank the town meeting members, Board of Selectmen, School Committee, Finance Committee, Auburn School Department, all of our boards and commissions, and the volunteers that serve on those, our legislative delegation, the business community, and our town employees for another great year. Thank you.
Before I read Article 2, I would like to get a motion, if I could, from the floor, that we use a standing vote to count people. There's been too much confusion up here and too much confusion about the count. So we'd ask people to stand up because when they're voting. So if I could have a motion.
I move that those seconding motions and votes that need a count be taken by standing of town meeting members.
Is there a second? Okay. We'd ask you to, if this goes through, we'd like people to stand when they second a vote, that's all, so we can tell who it is. Any questions? Mr. Dufour.
Mr. Moderator, Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. So, if I understand, the motion that was made was just for the person seconding a motion to stand so that the...
And the vote.
Okay.
And the vote.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Just seconding the vote, and then we're going to count them, that's all. So I guess we'll just raise our hands for hopefully the last time tonight. All those in favor? All those opposed? Actually, it is a vote. It's a majority. Thank you. Article 2, to see if the town meeting will vote to fix the salary and compensation of elected town officers or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion on Article 2?
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Mark Moss, Precinct 1, Article 2. I move that the town meeting vote to fix the salary and compensation of elected town officers for FY 2019 as follows. Town Moderator, $296. Selectman, Chairman, $1,740. Selectman, 4, $6,097. Town Clerk, $70,949.
Is there a second? There is a second. That worked quite well. Any opposition to this? All those in favor? If you'd stand up, please, if you don't mind. A little practice. Thank you. It's a vote. It's a vote. Huh? Oh, just a second. Okay. Excuse me, only when we're counting do you stand up. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Article 3, to determine what sums of money the town meeting will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide for and appropriate to defray charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide for reserve fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2019, or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Baker.
Charles Baker, Precinct 3. I move that the town meeting raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide for and appropriate to pay town debts and charges for the ensuing year, the several sums of money in the proposed budget as stated in the recommendation of finance columns on pages 20 to 65 inclusive of the Town of Auburn fiscal year 2019 budget and annual town meeting warrant totaling $63,118,229, and to raise said sum by transferring from available funds $30,000 from cemetery lots and graves, $25,000 from pension reserve, $3,000 from wetland funds, $40,000 reserved for appropriation dog licenses, $50,000 reserved for appropriation Casella host agreement, $875,000 from reserve for appropriation ambulance, $12,000 from overflow trash bags, $93,078.85 from high school, middle school debt reserve, $8,270.04 from premiums on bonds, BANS DE-1, $5,000 from perpetual care, and by raising and appropriate or otherwise providing for the balance of said funds. Each total amount as printed in the recommendation Finance Committee column of the 2018-19 budget to be considered a specified departmental appropriation, and further that the Finance Committee is authorized to transfer between the individual accounts which total any specific appropriation when requested by a department and the committee feels such transfer is in the best interest of the town.
Is there a second? Got a second over there. Joe Martin. Mr. Kazanovich?
Good evening all. Ed Kazanovich, Chief Financial Officer. Tonight I am presenting to you a balanced budget with total appropriations of $66.972 million, an equal amount of revenue also of $66,972,000, once again for a balanced budget. This budget utilizes 1.48% out of allowable 2.5% under Proposition 2.5, and an excess levy, given that $440,057 of unused levy is not built into this budget, the excess levy would grow to a little over $5 million. Getting into the different revenue components of the budget, as you can see, there are local receipts being estimated at $9,148,000. I'm going to round up. That's an increase of 1.13% or $102,000. Cherry sheet revenue, as highlighted by the chairman of the Finance Committee, is up 8.01% or $987,734. Tax levy used in this recommended budget of $39,624,000 and change. That's an increase of $1.1 million or 2.89%. The debt exclusion votes used to pay debt and interest for the Auburn Middle School, as well as continued debt and interest on the Auburn High School project, which will be retired in 2024. represents 3.1 million of additional tax levy outside of the levy limit, an increase of 5.36% or $158,000. In available funds, this is money that is currently available for appropriation, utilizes 1.769 million. That's down 543,000 or down 23.48%. Once again, total revenue of $66,972,605.79. That's a $1.817 million increase or 2.79%. And as you can see, an equal amount of increase on appropriations of $1,817,000, also a 2.79% increase. Breaking down the revenue as part of the formulation of the budget, we're utilizing tax levy of $39,624,700. The utilization of 2.5 is $637,189. That utilizes 59.14% out of possible 2.5%. We are conservatively estimating, based upon the 5-year history, new growth of 475,000. The 5-year average, as highlighted by our town manager, was 691,973. This budget, in accordance with the financial policies, uses 1/10 of the tax levy, which is $107,725 towards our capital 5-year program under Article 4, which reduces our reliance on future year borrowings as well as current year borrowings to fund our capital needs. In the FY19 budget, raises $3.1 million outside of the levy limit, once again for the Auburn High School and the Auburn Middle School projects for debt service costs associated with that. Here's our 5-year growth. This was shown by the town manager as well, showing the 5-year history of the new growth. Once again, our tax levy revenue currently taxes 88.76% of the total taxable levy. The difference of 11.24 represents the excess levy, estimated at this time based upon the recommendation before you tonight at $5,017,385. Here is an analysis of the excess levy over the last 9 years. This does include the excess levy in FY19. As you can see, the town has not taxed as allowed to the limit of 2.5 over the past 9 years. That being said, the savings to the taxpayers and the businesses of this community totals $28,236,371 over that 9-year period as a result of not taxing to the max. So we're very proud of that. Cherry Sheet state aid revenue represents $13.3 million. This uses the governor's proposed state aid numbers. Total Cherry Sheet revenue increase over current fiscal year is $987,734. What? No, I'm seeing white on my screen. I'm going to try to calibrate this. I'm not seeing what you're seeing. My background is white, so I apologize for that. But the total increase over current fiscal year is $987,000 and change. There is a 3% increase in unrestricted local aid in the governor's budget, giving giving the town an additional $59,880. The Chapter 70 increase, education aid, an increase of $881,543. The House Ways and Means budget is now out. We do have those numbers. They were released after we vetted out this budget with Finance. That budget would give the town an additional $98,862, which is not programmed in the recommendation before you tonight. And the Senate budget at this point in time is not known. Hopefully we'll get those numbers sometime in June. Also, under local assessments portion of the cherry sheet, this represents charges to the town of $622,181. There is a decrease in the assessments from current fiscal year of $34,017. Notable changes in the assessments is a decrease in charter schools sending tuition of $38,509. And the House budget, which is not built in, House Ways and Means, the cherry sheet assessments are higher than the governor's budget by $30,525. So if that should hold, that's an additional expense to the town. Once again, the Senate budget proposal is not known at this time. As part of the formulation of the budget of available funds, we're utilizing $1.769 million, made up of overlay surplus of $65,200, which is addressed under Article 16 before you tonight, to be used for recertification of real estate and personal property values. We're using one-time use of proceeds from premium of bond sale from the Auburn Middle School project of $90,000, in addition to the use of $110,000 from stabilization account to be used as a one-time upfront payment for a new fire engine as recommended under Article 4. Ambulance proceeds are used in this budget of $875,000 as a direct offset to the fire department operating budget. We're utilizing $210,000 of sewer retained earnings to help fund sewer capital needs under Article 4, as well as a $90,000 request under Article 19 for engineering and design services. Debt exclusion offset, which is part of bond proceeds that we reserved of $92,079, is being used in this budget, as well as Cable Access Enterprise Fund retained earnings in the amount of $18,051, an offset to capital needs for cable communications, capital under Article 4. Now I'm hung up, I can't, nothing's moving. So I apologize, my laptop is now frozen, so I'm going to rely on my hard copy printout. So hopefully we can get this back. No, it's still frozen. Just my luck tonight. We may have to. Moving on the revenue side, local receipts, we are estimating basically level funded at $9.147 million. Most of the local receipts right now are estimated to be level funded, except for some minor adjustments as it relates to SOAR Enterprise and cable indirect cost calculations. We will update these projections and make some amendments and modifications when the actual receipts are known through June 30th, and we'll make some corrections at the fall town meeting. Breaking down the total revenue of $66,972,606, 59.17%, or 59 cents out of every dollar is being raised through tax levy. 19.89%, or roughly 20 cents out of every dollar, is being funded through the state through cherry sheet state aid. 13.66%, or 13.5 cents of every dollar, is being funded through local receipts. Available funds represents 2.64% of total revenue. And the debt exclusion amount of $3.1 million represents 4.65% of total revenue. In recap, total revenue recommended for FY19 and being presented to you tonight is $66,972,606. That's an increase of $1.817 million, or 2.79% over current fiscal year. Still not working. The appropriations, and these are, the display I was going to show is what's in your warrant book tonight by department. Total appropriations, including all funding articles, is being recommended as $66,972,605.79. As part of the expenditure side of the budget, it meets all contractual and bylaw obligations for all employees. This budget represents and recommends new positions of 16.40 full-time equivalent positions. They are made up of 3 firefighters. These are 2 new from general fund revenue and 1 from existing fire suppression funds that are currently in FY18 budget. We have a new position recommended in the police department, a patrolman's position, 1 dispatch communications director, 1 highway heavy equipment operator, and 10.40 positions, full-time equivalents in the school department budget. It increases group health by 5.3%, or an increase of $365,000. It increases Worcester Regional Retirement Assessment. This is an actual known number assessment. It's an increase of 9.52%, or $250,745. It increases Medicare to meet the town's contribution of 1.45% for any and all wages. This budget, with the help of a recommendation from the Finance Committee, increases snow and ice by an additional $50,000, given our level of deficits over the past several years. We continue to address that, so we thought it would be fiscally responsible to increase that to meet the demand that we've been facing over the past several years. It increases our general fund operating reserve account by $40,000 to address our key financial policy that was adopted by both the board and the Finance Committee that sets a level of reserves of 0.5% of net operating expenditures. The net operating expenditures for FY17 was $58,484,000 and change. At 0.5%, it would put our reserve at $292,420. FY19 recommendation is $280,000. So we're just about $12,000 shy of what our benchmark states in the financial policies. One before, right there. Okay, thank you. This recommendation meets all of our debt and interest obligations for all our permanent bond issues, as well as our short-term borrowing. This budget assumes no permanent long-term bonding right now for 2019, although we do have a meeting with our financial advisors tomorrow to discuss our upcoming borrowing needs to close out the New Auburn Middle School, as well as any authorizations that may be voted on by you tonight. The budget provides for costs associated outside of the levy, once again, for the debt exclusion projects. And this budget provides for an additional $30,000 for an outside district placement that was brought to our attention by the school district for a student who will be attending Norfolk Agricultural School. This budget recommends a decrease based upon a preliminary assessment we received from BayPath. It's a reduction of $63,868, or a 5.7% reduction, due to an enrollment decrease from 92 to 84. Right now, this budget adequately provides funding for our motor vehicle fuel costs for all of our rolling stock, although recently gas prices have gone up by about 17% since we put this budget recommendation before the Finance Committee. Certainly, if costs continue to climb, we may have to make an adjustment at the fall town meeting. This budget level funds OPEB at $500,000, and there is currently no earmark in this budget for a stabilization account. That's something we bring before you, the town meeting members, in the fall. On the expenditure side, as I went over a little earlier, this does provide for the assessments as recommended by the governor's budget. This budget, once again, and will continue to apply our financial policies to our formulation of the budget. And the budget includes a capital improvement plan under Article 4. It's requesting $1.982 million to meet our capital needs, and will provide and recommend a borrowing of $537,000 out of that $1.9 million. When we look at a pie chart for how the expenditures relate by function of government, education uses 40 and a half cents out of every dollar goes towards education. Employee benefits is next in line, roughly 16 cents goes towards all of our employee fixed costs. 11.4 cents goes towards public safety, 9.5 cents towards debt and interest, almost 8 cents towards public works, general government about 5 cents of every dollar, as well as 5.5 cents for the assessments, offsets, CIP, and any articles that are being recommended in this budget tonight. Solid waste about $0.015 or goes towards solid waste, and public services a little over $0.015 as well. Followed by inspectional services, just under, not a penny, just under $1 goes towards inspectional services. So total appropriations is an increase of 1.817, or 2.79% over current fiscal year. And finally, a recap, a summary of the presentation. Total appropriations equals total revenue of $66,972,605.79. Once again, this tax is at 1.48% out of 2.5%, and it would not tax, leaves about $440,000 of unused levy under Prop 2.5. So I'm proud to say that you do have a balanced budget before you tonight. Certainly things are going to change between now and the fall town meeting, given the state numbers and given the level of local receipts that we may actually take in. And we will make some adjustments, and we will be back before you again in the fall. So, town meeting members, Mr. Moderator, that concludes my presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Article 3.
Before we go on, I just want to mention that our State Representative Paul Frost is in the building. He was in the room for a while, and he left to talk to somebody. Dr. Brunel?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, members of the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the School Committee. It is my honor to be here with you this evening and to share with you the presentation for the FY19 budget for the Auburn Public Schools. Does not look like that on my screen. So Matty Stepanek said, "Unity is strength." When there is teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved. I would offer to you that before you this evening in the school department's budget, there are many wonderful things that are happening in the schools. But I would also offer that there are wonderful things happening across the Auburn community. Because of the support of all of you town meeting members, the elected officials here, and everyone, all citizens in Auburn working together. Okay. So as we've done each year since I have been the superintendent of the Auburn schools, we build our budget based off the core values as well as our mission and vision. And these have been supported now twice through the strategic planning process. But against that, the backdrop that we've asked as we've gone through each step of our budget development is how will this impact students and their achievement? Here you see, and many of you who are in the room this evening are in this photo here. Back in November, we brought together over 140 school and community representatives. The intention being for us to revisit the strategic plan that had been started in November of 2013 and to again answer the question that what do we need to do to continue to ensure that our students are ready to embrace the opportunities and challenges of a changing world. The work of these 140 individuals on that Saturday morning continues with this subset who are now in the process of developing the actual strategic plan that we hope to bring to school committee at an early June meeting. We always start off our budget development by setting priorities, the school committee as well as the leadership team, and obviously student safety is one of critical importance. So in this budget, you'll actually see some things directly related to student safety. We're adding a board-certified behavior analyst, a BCBA, be paid exclusively with grant funds, but those individuals really help with the social and emotional support of students. We'll increase the hours of our athletic trainer. ABAs and IAs are added per student's IEPs. We'll bring on a one-to-one nurse to support a child whose specific needs require such, and then also funding to support recommendations of our safety advisory team. In terms of student achievement, another top priority of us in the district is that we're going to be adding a health teacher at Auburn Middle School. This individual will really help to support and implement the youth opioid prevention grant that Ms. Jacobson had mentioned earlier, in implementing a true prevention program to support our students. We'll add a fourth grade teacher. We're going to continue with our early college opportunities, as well as expanding our preschool. The goal really being to minimize, or when possible, eliminate financial barriers. We now have Beyond the School Day program that starts in our primary schools all the way through grade 12, and through our unified sports that really are opportunities for our most special students to participate athletically, to have IA and ABA support. Class size is another top priority of us in the district here. We're adding a fourth grade teacher at Swanson to be sure that our numbers stay at or below 25, as well as an IA at kindergarten for Packagug School. In terms of technology, you as town meeting members and citizens in Auburn have been immensely supportive with this initiative. So with our one-to-one that we now have in place 24/7, grades 6 through 12, and basically it's during the school year for grades 3 through 5, and about a 1-to-3 ratio at our primary schools, we're seeking to add a technology support person to be sure that those technology, and tonight's a wonderful example of it, stays up and running. In terms of textbooks, the priority that we're really focusing on are science textbooks. We have been waiting for the state to come out with their updated science standards. They are now out. We have a committee ongoing with their work right now, and we'll have a recommendation soon. Educator evaluation. This is mandated by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and we've embraced this in the Auburn schools. One thing that I think I may have mentioned to you at the fall special town meeting is us as administrators engage in learning walks, and we go and visit classrooms together and talk about what we see to be sure that we're calibrating our expectations across the district. In terms of professional development, we believe that in order to have students be ready to embrace opportunities across our schools, we need to be sure that we're providing training opportunities where our staff can continue to work and grow and thrive. This actually continues to fund such high-quality experiences. And then the strategic plan implementation, that really is overarching and reaches across all areas of this budget, not only the one that was developed in 2013, but the one that we're building upon from the work in 2017 when we actually met in November. So the 5 overarching goals of teaching and learning, technology, community partnerships, transitions, and health, wellness, and safety stay as our priorities. A summary of the new staffing requests that I have already mentioned are outlined here. The BCBA is grant funded, and then the two other, which are stipended positions, the unified sports coaches, to have coaches for those most special programs for our students, and then also adding a JV boys lacrosse coach. That program was implemented just over a year ago and is really expanding at great levels. In total, we have offsets that reach nearly $2.7 million in the budget, the goal being to try and minimize the impact to the citizens and residents of Auburn. As noted here, those come from school choice funds, grant funds, Medicaid receipts, revolving accounts, as well as billing rental accounts. And we see this really as our effort to be sure that we're participating in that whole effort around teamwork. So in total, the school department's requested budget is $25,849,562, which represents an increase of 3.47%, or $867,801. As Mr. Kazanovich noted, the House Ways and Means, the most recently released budget, actually has an increase in Chapter 70 monies, the education monies, of $988,425, which is $120,000 more than is requested in this increase. If you remember back at the fall special town meeting, I came before you and requested your approval and was granted it to establish a special education stabilization fund. And the caveat was that the representatives from the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and School Committee would get together to actually establish policies. And this special education stabilization fund is really to try to minimize the potential volatility in our special education lines, particularly for out-of-district students. Now, we take really seriously in the district our responsibility to educate our students in the least restrictive environment, which means in our school buildings whenever possible. There are occasions when that cannot be done safely for that child or perhaps the other children as well. So we need to have monies set aside to support them if a need arises. Through your support, they came at the fall special town meeting. We've developed a policy. But I wanted to share with you, and we currently do not have, because I wanted to maintain confidentiality, we don't currently have students who are in these out-of-district placements, but just for you to get an understanding of what those costs can be on an annual basis. So we do certainly try to send them to collaborative programs. That's our least restrictive, next least restrictive environment. But we've had in the past students attend the Conning School. So between tuition and transportation costs, it's well over $116,000 annually for a child. And you can see the other costs there. The final one being a residential program setting, so the transportation is less, it would only be on weekends, could run over $200,000 for children. Now, I will tell you, comparatively based to other districts, we do a very good job of keeping our students in-house, but there are occasions when we need to send them out. Through your support, we developed that working group and have created a policy, and just want to recognize those members who participated. We had Mr. Holstrom and Mr. Carpenter from the Select Board. We had Mrs. Holstrom, Mr. Kennedy from the Finance Committee, and Mr. Scobie and Mrs. Harrington from School Committee. And also to thank Ms. Jacobson, Mr. Kazanovich, Dr. Lozay, and Mrs. Worsbicky, who also participated. So we now have a policy in place. It was approved by the three boards in April, as noted there. And again, I thank you for your support. I think this is really going to help minimize the volatility that can be seen in those accounts. So as a district, we're constantly looking to strengthen our connections. We want to make sure that we are providing a solid program for our students. So in terms of rigor, we'll be offering next year 19 advanced placement courses for our students here at the high school, which is pretty remarkable for the size school that we have. Co-teaching and inclusion remain priorities, and those items noted in dark blue are strategic plan overarching goals. Additionally, in terms of relevance, this is really where we try to do the job-embedded trainings for our staff. Co-teaching and inclusion have been real strong ones of late. We've also been doing some work around science and then early literacy as well. In terms of relationships, we believe, I would offer in life, it's about the relationships and communication that you make. We're fortunate to have strong relationships, not only within the schools and working in teams, but across the entire Auburn community in supporting our students and all of our citizens. And then responding to needs based on data. So whatever our data shows that we need, we try to be flexible and bring forward ideas that will best support our students. These recent college acceptances, I hope, give you great pride as they do us in the schools. Not all of our children may have decided to go to these, but they have been accepted to these in recent years. And some, I would offer, are very prestigious colleges and universities. We believe that not only do we need to provide opportunities for our students to excel academically, as noted here in the various photos, but also that we give them opportunity to do so artistically. Some of you may have had the opportunity to see Mary Poppins or Shrek Jr. that were offered this past spring, that were absolutely phenomenal. The talents of our students never ceases to amaze me. We look forward and provide opportunities where our students can excel athletically, whether it's through a couple of years ago, our girls softball team won the district championship. You can see a photo there of one of our unified sports teams. It's about providing opportunities for children to excel. Additionally, in beyond the school day experiences, and again, I noted those start from our primary schools all the way up through high school. We had a unique opportunity this year where we welcomed some students from China who came and stayed. We had 37 over the course of about a couple weeks. It made some great global connections and friendships, which was really wonderful. Our high-quality staff, we couldn't do the work that we do without the team members that we have in place. And when I say team members, I mean everyone in the schools. It really is a true team effort. We have a dedicated teaching staff with over 80% of them having master's degree. We have support staff members who have been in our district for years. We have custodians, cafeteria workers, secretaries. All of them contribute to the success of our district. And then, as I've mentioned before, our collaboration with the town. We really are unique in that regard, I think, in the way that we work together so well, but I think that shows in the results that we are getting also. The articles that we have before you this evening, this one here comes before you each year. It's seeking $185,000 for Medicaid. These are reimbursement funds for services already provided. The mechanism, it goes into the general fund, and we need to ask your support, so I respectfully do so. The next one is the Auburn High Gymnasium Health and Recreational Trust Fund. Again, these monies are for interest, and we use them for site managers here. The school operating budget does supplement this quite substantially at this point because this school is used so regularly, but we respectfully ask your support of that as well. And then finally, to repurpose CIP funds that have already been approved by you. If you'll recall, you supported us in collaborating with the MSBA, and we saved over 50%, about 54.61% of the cost of the new roof at the Packagug School. So we'd like to repurpose those funds to add an additional bathroom at the Packagug School. It was originally our goal to add that bathroom in such a place that it would be actually added on to the building, so it could be used by our youth groups on the weekends as well. Unfortunately, our engineer has noted that if we are to expand the size of Packagug School, it would trigger an expectation for a sprinkler. So we're not going to be doing that, but we will be adding this into the building. It will be handicap accessible. Hope to have several stalls additional for students. And then in closing, as Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. I hope that you have come to believe in the Auburn Public Schools that these are words that we live by each day. This budget is one that we believe will help us to continue to move forward. I thank you for your past support and look forward to it again. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brunel. On page 18 and 19, you will find the budget. I'll read each line. If you have a question or a concern about one of them, please just say hold. When we finish the budget, we'll go back over any holds that we may have. Account number 114, moderator, total, $296. Account number 122, selectmen total, $11,287. Account number 129, executive office and town manager, $372,729. 131, finance committee total, $815. 132, reserve total, $280,000. 135, finance total, $629,533. Accountant. Law total, $120,000. Account number 151. Account number 152, Human Resources, $72,351. 155. Information Technology, $186,420. Number 161, Town Clerk total. Sorry, the Town Clerk was $169,789. The next one is the election total, which is $28,280. Town Hall total is $39,190. General Services total, $1,410,078. Schools, $25,849,562. Police, $4,574,157. Fire, number 220, $3,082,977. Did I hear a hold? No. 291, Emergency Manager, $14,000. 302, Bay Path, $1,057,063. Number 303, Norfolk Agricultural School, $62,149. DPW total, $5,244,274. Solid, 433, solid waste total, $1,043,981. Division of Inspectional Services total, that's account number 511. $610,013. Department of Public Services, $1 million, that's account number 641, $1 million. Oh, sorry. Oh, the appeals total, $13,410. That's 176. Now 541. Department of Public Services, $1,103,617. Youth Commission, numbers 542, $120,000. 691, Historical Commission, 0. 710, maturing debt, $4,980,966. 752, interest, $1,321,524. 910, pension, total, $10,719,058. So the bottom line there was $63,118,229. There were no holds on it. Any questions? I don't see any hands up. This is a 2/3 vote. So the first thing I'll ask is there anybody opposed to the budget? Huh? What? Oh. Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. 4 is 2/3. To see if the town meeting will vote to approve a capital improvement budget for the fiscal year 2019. We have to vote on three. We have to vote on three. That's what I thought. She told me 4. Huh? Oh, Article 3 is a majority. All those opposed? All those in favor? That's unanimous vote. Now Article 4. To see if the town meeting will vote to approve a capital improvement budget for fiscal year 2019 to determine what sums of money will be raised by taxation and appropriated, transferred from available funds, acquired by lease purchase contract, authorized to be borrowed or otherwise provided for to fund the fiscal year 2019. Capital improvement budget to determine under whose direction the expenditure of said funds will be made, and authorize the town treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow money from time to time for notes, bonds, or notes in anticipation of bonds or revenues, to be payable in not more than the term provided by law. Said borrowed funds need not to exceed such sums as the town may vote or act on anything relative thereto. I understand that there is an amendment to this, so we'll get the motion first. Ms. Holstrom.
Kim Holstrom, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting approve the 5-year capital improvement plan for the town manager, information technology, town clerk, planning, police, fire, engineering, highway, sewer, cemeteries, senior center, elder affairs, library, parks, Auburn Community Television, and schools as stated on pages 67 through 74 inclusive of the Town of Auburn FY 2019 budget and annual town meeting warrant. And further, to approve an appropriation of $1,982,035 to fund the FY 2019 capital improvement program as specified on pages 66 through 74 under the column entitled Finance Committee Recommendation, and to raise said sums by borrowing and appropriating the sum of $991,984 from general fund revenues, $25,000 from CIP expendable trust, $110,000 from stabilization, $90,000 from reserve for bond proceeds, $210,000 from sewer enterprise retained earnings, $18,051 from cable access. I also move that the town meeting authorize the borrowing of $537,000 for a period of up to 10 years for the items as identified in the 5-year capital improvement plan. I further move that prior to purchase, all over-the-road vehicles shall be marked on both front door panels as property of the Town of Auburn for official use only, and have a permanently affixed town seal, and that the expenditure of funds so appropriated shall be under the direction of the chief procurement officer of the town or school department.
Is there a second? There we go. There's a couple.
Mr. Moderator, I would also move to amend the motion made for Article 4 by adding the following language. Any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Is there a second? Are there any questions on the amendment? There being none, All those opposed to the amendment, raise your hand. All those in favor? It is a vote. Now we're back to the main motion as it is amended. Are there any questions on the main amendment? Not seeing any then, I'll ask if anybody is opposed to this. Article 4. Not seeing any hands. How many are in favor? It is a vote. No. Article 5, I believe, appears on page 75. Article 5, to see if the town meeting will vote to authorize the town treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of revenue to be received during the financial year beginning July 1st, 2018, and ending June 10th, 2019, and to issue a note or notes that may be given for a period of less than 1 year or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, William Byland, Precinct 2. Article 5, I move that the town meeting vote to authorize the town treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of revenue to be received during the financial year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019, and to issue a note or notes that may be given for a period of less than 1 year.
Is there a second? There we go. Any questions? Not seeing any? All those opposed? All those in favor? It is a vote. Article 6, to see if the town meeting will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to submit applications for any available state or federal funds, including the Department of Elder Affairs formula, grant funds, which funds might the board determines to be beneficial to the town, and to authorize the expenditures of any money received as a result of said applications or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, Carolyn Vangel Corvo, Precinct 1. I move that the town meeting vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to submit applications for any available state or federal funds, including Department of Elder Affairs formula grant funds, which funds the board determines to be beneficial to the town, and to authorize the expenditure of any money received as a result of said applications.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, it is a vote. Article 7, to see if the town meeting will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell at public auction or by sealed bid or at assessed value under special circumstances any properties which the town may have acquired or may hereafter acquire through tax title foreclosure proceedings, and to sign, acknowledge, and deliver in the same name and under the seal of the town deeds therefore or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Greg Bowling, Precinct 4. I move that the town meeting vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell at public auction or by sealed bid or at assessed value under special circumstances any properties which the town may have acquired or may hereafter acquire through tax title foreclosure proceedings, and to sign, acknowledge, and deliver in the name and under the seal of the town deeds therefore.
Thank you. Is there a second? There is a second. Any questions or discussion? Not seeing any then, all those in favor? All those opposed, it is a vote. Article 8, to see if the town meeting will vote to authorize the town treasurer to enter into compensatory balance agreements during the fiscal year 2019 as permitted by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 14, Section 553F, or act on any other enabling statute. If voted, this would permit the treasurer to maintain specific sums of money and deposit in banks in return for banking services, or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Greg Bowling, Precinct 4. I move that the town meeting vote to authorize the town treasurer to enter into compensatory balance agreements during fiscal year 2019 as permitted by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F, or any other enabling statute. If voted, this would permit the treasurer to maintain specific sums of money and deposit in banks in return for banking services.
Is there a second? There is a second. Any questions or discussion? Not seeing any then, all those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 9, to see if the town meeting will vote to establish or renew revolving funds for various town and school programs in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53D, and Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 71, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, Larry Chicolo, Precinct 3. I move that the town meeting vote to renew pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, the establishment of revolving accounts for the Auburn preschool program and school department driver training revolving account, the athletic revolving account, the food service revolving account, the music revolving account, the student activity account, the revolving account for adult education and continuing education programs, adult fitness programs, the tuition revolving account, transportation revolving account, summer school and summer school 2 revolving accounts, and the revolving account for the tuition of state wards cherry sheet receipts. Further, I move that the town meeting vote to continue the revolving fund for the Auburn Parks Department. Said fund established at a 5/1/97 annual town meeting in accordance with MGL C44S53D for general maintenance of a memorial park. Further, to continue the revolving account for the Auburn Parks Department for all fees received by the Parks Department for field use. All revolving accounts and funds to submit annual budgets and reports to the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Any questions or discussions? Not seeing any then, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Those opposed, it is a vote. Article 10, to see if the town meeting will vote to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract or contracts with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for the construction and maintenance of public highways for the period commencing July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Jacob Turcott, Precinct 1. I move that the town meeting vote to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract or contracts with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for the construction and maintenance of public highways for the period commencing July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion or questions? Not seeing any then, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Those opposed, it is a vote. Article 11, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate from available funds a sum of money, if it becomes available, from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, Chapter 90, bond issue proceeds to be used for the repair and maintenance of town roads in conformance with the Commonwealth general laws or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Jacob Turcott, Precinct 1. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate from available funds a sum of money, if it becomes available, from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Chapter 90 bond issue proceeds to be used for the repair and maintenance of town roads in conformance with the Commonwealth general laws.
Is there a second? Article 12. Oh, wait a minute, we didn't vote on that. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 12. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $500,000 to the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Hi, Beth Proudy, Precinct 1. I move the town meeting vote to appropriate $500,000 to the other post-employee benefits liability trust fund.
Thank you, Mrs. Proudy. Is there a second? There's several. Are there any questions or comments? Not seeing any then? All those in favor, raise their hands. Those opposed? It is a vote. Article 13. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $185,000 for Medicare receipts within the general fund's revenues to the Auburn School Department operating budget for the fiscal year 2019 to fund supplies and medical, therapeutic, and educational services for significantly disabled special needs students, as well as tuition and transportation to and from outside placements or within the department, or within the district for special needs students, or act on anything relative thereto. Mrs. Ethia.
Ellen Ethia, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $185,000 from the Medicaid receipts within the general fund reserves to the Auburn School Department operating budget for the fiscal year 2019 to fund supplies and medical, therapeutic, and educational services for significantly disabled special needs students, as well as tuition and transportation to and from outside placements or within the district for special needs students.
Is there a second? Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 14. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $8,676.72, which is the interest earned by the Auburn High School Gymnasium Health and Recreational Trust Fund, to offset school department costs at Auburn High School in support of the community health and recreational activities at Auburn High School Gymnasium and related facilities and equipment, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion, Mrs. Ethia?
Ellen Ethia, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $8,676.72, which is the interest earned by the Auburn High School Gymnasium Health and Recreational Trust Fund, to offset school department costs at Auburn High School in support of community health and recreational activities at Auburn High School Gymnasium and related facilities and equipment.
Is there a second? There is a second. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 15. To see if the town meeting will vote to repurpose CIP funds by amending Article 4 of the May 2016 town meeting, Packagug Building Rehab, account number 017-581-739 as follows. Authorize the amount of $127,685 to be used for the purpose of the design and construction of an additional bathroom as required at Packagug Elementary School, 110 Packagug Street, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Mary Ellen Paquette, Precinct 2. I move that the town meeting vote to repurpose CIP funds by amending Article 4 of the May 2016 town meeting, Packagug Building Rehab, account number 302017-581739 as follows. Authorize the amount of $127,685 to be used for purposes of the design and construction of an additional bathroom as required at Packagug Elementary School, 110 Packagug Street.
Is there a second? There is a second. This is a 2/3 vote, by the way. Any questions? Discussion, yes.
Danny Largis, Precinct 4. Dr. Brunel, quick question. I forgot to ask you earlier. What was the purpose of these bathrooms for this? I was under the understanding that preschool, it's for the preschool. I thought we already had the bathrooms in the school here for 2 classrooms for preschool now.
So through the moderator, it's not solely for that. We did add 2 preschool classrooms. Those classrooms actually have bathrooms in them. They were previously kindergartens. When we move those children out, they're now in classrooms that don't have bathrooms in them. So it's really just to provide more bathroom space for the students in the school in total.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brunel. Any other questions or comments? This is a 2/3 vote. All those opposed? Not seeing any? All those in favor? It is a vote, unanimous. Article 16. To see if the town meeting will vote to raise and appropriate $65,200 from overlay surplus for the purposes of funding costs associated with the assessors fiscal year 2020 recertification of real and personal property values and associated software upgrades, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Mr. Proudy.
Mr. Moderator, Ron Proudy, Precinct 1. I move that the town meeting vote to raise and appropriate $65,200 from overlay surplus for the purpose of funding costs associated with the assessors fiscal year 2020 recertification of real and personal property values and associated software upgrades.
Is there a second? There is a second. Any questions? Not seeing any then? All those in favor? Those opposed? It is a vote. Article 17. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $46,000 from general fund revenues for the care and maintenance of the Mary D. Stone School building and the Julia Bancroft School building, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Bob Gall, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $46,000 from general fund revenues for the care and maintenance of the Mary D. Stone School building and the Julia Bancroft School building.
Is there a second? There is a second. Any questions? Ms. Holstrom?
Can you tell us when we'll stop having to pay this amount of money?
Mrs. Jacobson?
When we first decided to award the bid to Penrose Properties, which I believe was in June of 2017, it was under the understanding that they would be applying for tax credits from the state from a number of different programs to fund the senior housing development project. The project without the tax credits is not economically viable. The Mary D. Stone School will provide about 56 units of senior affordable housing. The cost to that is approximately $19 million. Approximately $2 million of that is historic tax credits, and about 60 to 70% at least are additional tax credits from the state. The second project at Julia Bancroft is about 64 units, and that's about $20 million. Same thing, about $2 million of historic tax credits from the state, and the remaining majority coming from income tax credits from DHCD. The developer had anticipated it would take about 2 years to get all the tax credits together, which we knew at the time of the award. They are right on schedule. They did get their comprehensive permits from the planning board in, I believe, October of 2017. And they did apply in the first round of funding for DHCD for the LITC credits in December of 2017. As expected, when a developer applies for the first round of credits, they are not invited to put a full application in. You have to get in the pipeline. So generally, you're not funded until the second or third round. So they did get through the first round. Understandably, they can't move the project forward because the projects all get in the pipeline. They are in line to apply again for the second round. In the interim, we are working very hard at the state level and federal level to secure the federal tax credits through Mass Historic Commission, and those are federal historic tax credits which will be used to actually to retain and restore the facade and the front portion of the sides of the original buildings. And the proposal, as you know, is to remove the newer sections that were built in the 50s. So all of these tax credits need to come together. Again, the plan was approximately 2 years to get these projects both underway, 2 to 2.5 years. They are on schedule, but we did anticipate we would have to do this until they got everything secured.
Thank you. Anybody? Question? Yes, sir.
Danny Largis, Precinct 4. So are these buildings sold? Are we leasing them? Where is the town in this?
The buildings were put out for RFP, so we put an RFP out for the sale of the buildings. The sale cannot be completed until the tax credits are in place. So until such times, that is why the town will continue to own the property, and we are paying for the insurance on the property, modest upkeep to the property. The developer has actually done some roof work, donated the funds to us to do the roof work on Mary D. Stone. Should anything happen to the Julia Bancroft building that potentially compromises the historic facade portion of it, they'll also help fund any repairs to that. But this is just the ongoing costs that we assumed when we took the buildings over from the school department of the insurance.
So we're on the hook for keeping historical?
Until we sell these properties, we don't have to maintain the historical, we just want to make sure that it doesn't get further compromised from where there already is. They are seeking historic tax credits, so they will be able to restore the historical portions, specifically the brick facade, and maintain the beautiful outside aesthetics of it. But if it does get any compromise from weather or particularly something wrong with the roof, it will cost more to do that. So to try to keep those development costs down. As you can hear, these are two very expensive projects, both around $20 million.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any? All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 18, to see if the town meeting will vote to authorize the borrowing of $200,000 to upgrade various sections of gravity sewer line and manholes, or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jeff Mitchell, Precinct 3. I move that the town meeting vote to authorize the borrowing of $200,000 to upgrade various sections of gravity sewer line and manholes.
Is there a second? There is a second. Is there an amendment to this?
Yes, there is, Mr. Moderator. I would also like to amend the motion made for Article 18 by adding the following language. Any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the General Laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Is there a second? Mrs. Granger. Any questions or comments? This is a 2/3 vote. All those opposed, please raise your hand. All those in favor? It is a unanimous vote. Article 19. Yes. Oh, that was on the amendment, thank you. Okay, that was on the amendment. Well, we'll start again. On the amendment, just to make it official, all those opposed to the amendment, raise your hand. All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Now we're back to the original motion as amended. Any questions on that? All those opposed? All those in favor? It is a unanimous vote. Article 19, I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate the sum of $90,000 from Sewer Enterprises retained earnings for engineering and design services to install a sleeve under Route 20 to serve as an emergency means of pumping wastewater from the Pinrock Station to the Upper Blackstone Treatment Plant. Is there a motion, Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jeff Mitchell, still from Precinct 3. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate the sum of $90,000 from Sewer Enterprise retained earnings for engineering and design services to install a sleeve under Route 20 to serve as an emergency means of pumping wastewater from the Pinrock Station to the Upper Blackstone Treatment Plant.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? Discussion? Not seeing any of those? All those in favor? All those opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Article 20. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $20,000 from general fund revenues for the Master Plan Review Committee's consultant services or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Mrs. Gabriel.
Ellen Gabriel, Precinct 1. I move the town meeting vote to appropriate $20,000 from general fund revenues for the Master Plan Review Committee's consultant services.
Is there a second? Are there any questions or concerns about this? Not seeing any then, all those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 21. To see if the town meeting will vote to authorize the borrowing of $300,823 to fund the purchase of existing streetlights from National Grid and a conversion of existing streetlights to energy efficient excuse me, and long-term LED. It is sum to be spent under the direction of the town manager or act on anything relative thereto. Ms. Holstrom.
I move that the town meeting vote to authorize the borrowing of $300,823 to fund the purchase of existing streetlights from National Grid and the conversion of existing streetlights to energy efficient and long-lasting LED, said sum to be spent under the direction of the town manager.
Is there a second? There is.
Mr. Moderator, I would also move to amend the motion made for Article 21 by adding the following language. Any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the General Laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Is there a second on this amendment? Are there any questions, comments on the amendment? Not seeing any then? All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All those opposed? It is a 2/3 vote on the amendment. Now back to the main motion. Any questions or comments on the main motion? Mr. Hopper.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. I guess sort of a general comment, maybe a question to the town manager. Last town meeting, I raised the health issues. The AMA had raised some issues about LED lighting and the level of kelvins, and I did, the town manager did speak to me the other day addressing my issues, but I think I know that it wasn't just me that raised the issue, so I think it's helpful before we have the vote just to hear the response to the issues that I raised with respect to the health on LED lights.
Ms. Jacobson.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper, and thank you for calling and asking the question. We do have a couple of slides that the town planner, Matt Benoit, is just going to show you to help explain this. Just as a reminder, this is a follow-up to an article that was passed and approved by a town meeting in the fall to allow us to initially start this project. And at the time, Mr. Hopper had asked some questions related to potential health issues with the LED lighting. And that is addressed in here, but just to summarize, and then Matt is going to just show you how this is going to work financially. But the American Medical Association had expressed some concerns in a report quite some time ago that LED lighting with over 4,000 kelvins potentially could have health issues if it was if you were in constant contact with that. As a result of that, most of the LED lighting nowadays is 3,000 kelvins. That would be what ours would be, and ours will actually be reduced even further by a dimmer switch. So we will be not only at the AMA recommended levels, but will actually be below it. But I want to turn to the town planner just to understand the finances and how this all comes together.
Good evening, everyone. Matthew Benoit, I'm their town planner. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, town administration, board of selectmen, and members of the school committee and the finance committee. So what we have, where to go? Am I missing something? It's like F5, I'm just used to hitting that. Oh, it's that number underneath, thank you. I could just full screen it, right? Oh, you did, thank you. Okay, so our LED streetlight project. For one, there's a lot of streetlights in Auburn that you probably don't see when you're driving around right away, but there's 1,123 lights in town. What we're looking at for possible savings potential is of almost $91,000 annually. That's energy cost savings and maintenance savings. Looking at a reduction of over 250,000 kilowatt hours, which is almost a 2.1% reduction of our overall usage for the town. So the cost after utility incentives and a 30% reduction grant, the overall project is about $360,000. Bear in mind that last town meeting we appropriated $100,000 for the buyback and the audit and the design. So what's before you today is the additional $300,000 with a contingency. Looking at a 4.5-year payback. Life expectancy of bulbs can be up to 20 years. A lifetime savings for the project of $1.09 million total. So the benefit of LED lights right out the gate, depending on demo switches or not, can reduce your usage of 50% to 70%. It's a more even light distribution. I'll get into that in a little bit. But for maintenance costs, the high pressure sodium lights that you see today that have kind of that yellow-orange view, they only last 5 to 8 years, and LEDs can last 10 to 20 with a 10-year warranty. So those high pressure sodium lights, 2400 Kelvin. Now 4000 K, as the town manager had mentioned moments ago, is common for LEDs in other towns and other cities. But since the American Medical Association released recommendations in 2016, the 3000 Kelvin is their recommended maximum. So what we're doing to comply with that is to make sure that we're using bulbs that are no higher than 3000 Kelvin. LEDs are going to have shields on the fixtures to prevent spillage from outside the street. The wireless controls to dim the lights, you can dim them automatically up to 30%, and the human eye won't even be able to tell the difference. So you're saving 30% in reduction right there out the gate. And you can dim them even more depending on neighborhoods and requests. And remove any unnecessary lights that may be lighting areas that don't require it. Next slide. There we go. So securing funding is the first option. And we've applied for a grant for the Green Communities Division for up to $250,000. If we get that grant, then the money that we're approving here at town meeting today would be significantly less. So fingers crossed. We applied for the grant in March. We're not going to hear about it till June. So our next steps are to begin the retrofit once we assume maintenance of our streetlights. Currently, we have two sets of lights, some that are owned and maintained by National Grid and some that are owned by the town and only maintained by National Grid. So we have to get those switched onto a different tariff. It's complicated before we can retrofit them. And at that time, we would have to engage a maintenance contract also. So the rest of our timeline is secure financial approval. As you can see, some of the steps that we've accomplished already. The audit actually was completed last week. So you may have seen the cars out there tallying the lights. They have finished their audit and provided me with a map already that wasn't quite ready to share this evening. So if anyone has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you.
Any more? Yes.
Evening, Tom Keyes, Precinct 4. Just a question. The savings of approximately $92,000, I believe it was, off of what total for now is that?
What that is approximately $50,000 in energy savings, cost savings just off the supply rate, and about $36,000 in maintenance cost savings, and that's just for the fixtures alone. Now, when we add the wireless controls, there's an additional cost savings and maintenance of about $4,700.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I saw another hand up. Yes, sir.
Doug Nelson, Precinct 2. You mentioned removing lights or something like that. Is there going to be a reconfiguration town-wide? Because sometimes you'll drive down the street, you'll see 2 or 3 in a row, and then a big gap with no lights. And it would be nice to see them, more regularly placed. The other thing I was wondering is, are they going to have like a downward focus, to avoid light pollution? And I guess that was it. Otherwise, it looks like a great project.
Sure.
So those are my two questions.
Thank you. So the shielding on the LED fixtures themselves will angle the light down to the street to prevent spillover. When you see a high pressure sodium bulb now, you can actually see the bulb from your house possibly. But these shields will make it so you can only see the bulbs or the brightness from the street and where it's pointing straight down. And your first question I should have answered first. I apologize. I don't believe we're going to be adding any poles, but as far as our the design piece, we have to analyze those close ones, as you mentioned, Mr. Nelson. And if there seems to be an excess of light fixtures in that area, we may even discuss that internally, not just with administration, but also possibly reach out to the residents in that area to see if that's something that they'd be amenable for.
I did have one more question. Where into the regular budget that we voted tonight is the maintenance or payment for these, either the lights or the electricity found? Is that broken out anywhere in here?
This is Ed?
So currently, one of the tariffs, we are charged a maintenance fee by National Grid, and they maintain those lights.
But what, line item does that fall under in our budget? Is that town manager or?
That would be under general services, under the street light electricity account.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a question? One more. Yes, Mrs. Ethia?
Ellen Ethia, Precinct 5. I've seen over the past few months meetings with Conservation Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals that we have two major solar farms going into Auburn, one on Leicester Street, one on Rochdale Street. Do we get any benefit from the electricity that these solar farms will generate to help us pay for the electricity used in these lights, or even lights in this building or any other part of the town?
Sure. So the biggest benefit that we'll receive from these solar fields is taxes. These structures can be taxed as structures, so there'll be a big tax revenue from that. Energy-wise, the whole purpose of solar is there's a SMART program with the state, and so they'll be off-taking, but unfortunately, I don't believe Auburn will be engaged with that program as a community. We already have a net metering credit agreement at a facility in Rutland for majority of our usage.
Okay, so we get nothing out of that other than the tax money? Which is a benefit, and I understand that. Okay, I have another question about that, but I know it's not for here and now. I'll ask it at another time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Mr. Dufour?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. Just in relation to the maintenance plan, is there a projected cost for the maintenance plan for the new lighting? Thank you.
So we have estimated, based on our budget for this was, let's call it based on $1. The maintenance cost estimates that we've seen, at least projections with other communities, is probably 50 cents to the dollar. So we've more than budgeted enough for what the proposed maintenance cost would be.
Anybody else have a question? Not seeing any. No, this is a 2/3 vote. So all those opposed, please raise your hands. Not seeing any. All those in favor? It is a vote. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Article 22. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $12,000 from general fund revenues to replace the conveyor belt system on a DPW six-wheel dump truck, or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Glenn Feldman, Precinct 4. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $12,000 from the general fund revenues to replace the conveyor belt system on a DPW six-wheel dump truck.
Thank you, Glenn. Is there a second? There is a second. Is there any discussion or questions? Not seeing any then? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 23. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $2,000 from general fund revenues for the cupola restorations at the Auburn High School, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Carl Westman, Precinct 1. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $2,000 from the central fund revenues for cupola restoration at the Auburn High School.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? Wait. Oh. We have a couple of questions. John?
John Stencil, Precinct 5. I don't know why we want to do this. The cupola should have been gone long ago, and I don't want to spend our money on this, and I'd rather use it for a bonfire. Thank you.
So are some other hands up out there? Yes.
Eric Berg, Precinct 1. A question and a comment. If this fails, what happens to it? Do we turn it to garbage?
Mr. Coyle?
Bill Coyle, DPW Director, Town Engineer, Mr. Moderator, town meeting members. Over the past several years, I've had many individuals come to my office requesting that we upgrade and maintain the cupola. It's at a point where it's in disrepair. Over the past winter, we removed the railings because they're basically falling off the cupola. So we're at a point where I believe there's $1,500 that was donated for the maintenance of the cupola. The additional $2,000 would allow sufficient funding for our own staff to go in and repair the structure. Beyond that, if the funding was not approved, we'd have to discuss what ultimately would happen to the structure.
Thank you.
So then my comment would be, if we're willing as a group to spend $46,000 to maintain and keep the historic nature of the elementary schools that we're selling, $2,000 seems like a small price to pay to preserve a historic piece of the high school.
Any other questions? Yes, Mrs. Ethia.
Ellen Ethia, Precinct 5. So if there's money already donated from concerned residents, graduates of the high school, to preserve the cupola, it doesn't seem fair to let that money just sit when it could be used towards it. I know that there are people trying to get, Bay Path to help out, or the, Sheriff's Department to get others to help out to offset some of the cost. $2,000 is not a lot of money. I heard earlier today we've got money in our free cash, and we've got money in other places, and we've got percentages that we can spend because we have done so well over the last few years. It's saving a piece of history in this town, and when you look around, there are not many old buildings that have been saved. I grew up in Worcester. The school I went to is a parking lot now. I can understand people wanting to save some piece of this. It's not a lot. There are people willing to work for it. I think we should give them the $2,000. Thank you.
Ms. Jacobson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to add that this, as Mr. Coyle referenced, this has been going on for a couple of years where we've been trying to find other ways to restore this. So I did want to let town meeting members know that we had reached out to the vocational schools. They were unable to do it because of the lead paint component. We did ask several contractors for bids. We received bids that were approximately $10,000 because of the lead paint and the reconstruction nature of the project. So to try to reduce the costs, we were approached by members of the Historic Commission to see if we could restore this. So the DPW agreed to have 2 of its employees get certified in lead paint removal, which saved us about $8,000 in not having to contract that work out. But there is still a cost. So the money that was donated to the town, and I believe it was about $1,500, isn't enough to cover the cost of the lead paint removal and the supplies that we need to actually rebuild this dome. So the $2,000 would be added to the $1,500, and then we would use the entire amount to finish the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Dufour?
Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. So if we were to not appropriate it and say, just as an estimate on what would the cost be to that the town would incur in removing with all of the different challenges with the cupola? What would the estimated cost be for removal as opposed to repair?
Mr. Coyle?
Through the moderator, I haven't done an estimate exactly what that cost would be. I would venture to guess that it would probably be somewhere between $500 to $1,000.
Thank you. Anybody else, Mr. Lodges?
This was discussed, if I'm not mistaken, years ago when this whole thing was moved from Fuller's to over there. In one of the town meetings of who was going to maintain it and what was it going to cost. And if I'm not mistaken, we'd voted on it, there was going to be absolutely no cost to the town residents. So now we're forking out money for this, and there's still, it's just sitting in the field. I mean, they could have done something with this. They could have used it in the football field to be a concession stand for something. So who's going to end up maintaining this over the years and the generations to come?
I have no idea. I don't know if anybody else does.
Town residents.
Mr. Moderator, if I could, my feeling is that if it's not maintained, obviously we're going to have to remove the cupola at some point. I think that long-term, it would appear that the facilities division, unless there are additional donations made, and I know there have been attempts over the past several years to receive additional donations by other individuals. So unfortunately, that hasn't happened. So I think we're at a point where we need to decide what we're going to do with the cupola. And we do have a facilities division, which is going to be a significant savings. In the past, I believe the town manager mentioned we had an estimate of about $10,000 just to de-lead and paint the structure. Two of our facilities employees over the winter, in anticipation that this is going to potentially happen, did go to classes to get certified for lead paint removal, which they will also use for other projects as well, not just this one. So we are prepared to do the work through DPW at a significant savings, and unfortunately in terms of long-term maintenance, it's something the town's going to have to decide as the time comes, and facilities are certainly willing and ready to do the work if the town meeting members appropriate the funds. Thank you.
Anybody else? John?
John Stencil, Precinct 5. The unit has no purpose. There's no purpose for that thing. It's just a waste of money, so we'll throw good money after bad.
Any other comments? Yeah, oh, yes.
And we all had pictures taken. So there is some sentimental value for those of us that graduated from the original Auburn High School. And I'd hate to see it torn down. I mean, I'm glad they kept something from it. I mean, there was a long battle to build a new high school, and that was kind of like the token that they kept. And I'd like to see it maintained. And I don't know, we could even ask for union classes to donate to if that becomes a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Page?
Thanks, Gail. Good evening, Wayne Page. There was a time where they were having a lot of discussions about getting rid of the cupola, and because it was so bad, and then a group of us citizens went over there and repaired the sidewalk on the cupola and scraped the lead paint and covered it with water-based paint. So there is not that much lead paint on it, and a lot of the paint that is on it is a water-based thing. It just, what happened is the town neglected to keep up with it, or the school department. And, okay, but like I said, a group of us citizens went over there, fixed it, water-based it, scraped it, and ever since then, there has been no work done on it. and I think you should save it for the town. It is historical.
Mr. Proudy?
Excuse my slowness, Mr. Moderator, of the people who are here, and there are quite a few who graduated from that school. I'm getting to be the oldest, and as we become less and less in number, the need to save that piece of junk becomes less and less. I was a member of the school building committee. The school building committee warned back in the early 2000s that that cupola shouldn't be saved. But there were people who at that time wanted to save the whole building that it came from. Well, that certainly was not economically feasible. And as we're sitting in this room, we have a lot of benefits that we would not have had if we had kept that building on the spot. And so we moved the cupola. Well, I think probably what tells us most about his situation is that not once in this meeting, and the 20 people or so that have spoken it, have called it what it is. It's the Green Dome. And that's what the school magazine was known then. It was green. You know, it was a lovely piece of Greek architecture. It's not the Parthenon. I think it should go. It's lived and outlived its time. To sit there doing nothing but reminding old folks like us that, oh, that was on the school once, I think now is a foolish waste of time. The people who advocated for saving the school and then advocated for saving that marble structure that stands out there promised there would be no expense to the town, that they would raise enough money to keep that in proper shape. Well, you can see that it has not been done. It's not kept in good shape. If you want to come here every 4, 5, 6 years and go through this over and over again for a piece of architecture that our kids will say, what's that doing there? I think we're wasting time and money.
Yes. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? It is a vote. The question is moved. Article 24. Oh, what? Oh, let's vote on the article. All those in favor of spending the $2,000? Is it two? Yeah, $2,000, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The article is voted down. Article 24. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $3,200 from the expendable trust cemetery perpetual care account for the purchase of 2 weed whackers, a cordless vacuum, a pressure washer, a tent top, an impact drill set, a cremation table, and landscaping, or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Westerman.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $3,200 from the expendable trust cemetery for a natural care account for the purchase of 2 weed whackers, cordless vacuum, pressure washer, a tent top, an impact drill set, ceremony table, and landscaping.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions on this? Not seeing any then? All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 25. To see if the town meeting will vote to approve the grant of a permanent easement on town-owned land to the Greater Worcester Land Trust for the use of accessing Granger Cliffs property or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, Deb Valentine, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to approve the grant of a permanent easement on town-owned land to the Greater Worcester Land Trust for the use of accessing the Granger Cliffs property.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? John?
John Stencil, Precinct 5. Why would they need access to this property? Are they going to develop it? And which property are they coming from? They coming from Oxford Street or Prospect Street? What's going on here?
Mr. Benoit? Mr.
Thank you,
Go ahead.
Through the moderator, this property would be owned, the former Cliff Granger Estates off of Prospect Street is currently owned by the Greater Worcester Land Trust. This is a life estate. As many of you know, Mr. Granger had passed recently, and his family will still be living out on that property, and when the time, after that time passes, there will be a life estate with the Greater Worcester Land Trust. And the purpose of the land is for it to remain in conservation in perpetuity. So the point of this easement is to ensure that from the Cliff Granger estate that you see on the map behind me, there's a small easement across town property onto an additional town property that's protected under conservation in perpetuity, known as the Granger Cliffs. The purpose of this easement would be to maintain a footpath in the future for possible future development of hiking trails in the area. Now, that's as conceptual as the plan is at this time. This is not something that's any sort of written in stone for now. This could be accessed in multiple different ways. Could be Prospect Street, could be Washington Street, could be South Oxford Street. But that's not on the table yet. It hasn't been discussed. But just at the time in which this is taking place, it seemed appropriate for the Greater Worcester Land Trust to contact the town and get this easement put in place at this time now, in case, and this gives them options for their conservation hiking trail system in the future.
Any other questions? Not seeing any then? All those in favor? All those opposed? It is a vote.
Thank you.
Article 26. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $6,375 from general fund revenues for the purchase of a ClearGov Insights platform, including setup, training, and support, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Mr. Dufour.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $6,375 from general fund revenues for the purchase of a ClearGov Insights platform, including setup, training, and support.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? Mr. Hopper.
Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. What is this thing?
Ms. Jacobson?
You said you weren't going to have any questions. No, I'm happy to show you. This is a new web-based platform for a company that's located in Hopkinton called ClearGov. And it accomplishes a number of different things. First of all, it's open and available to the public to go onto this site and look at any of the data that we will be providing to ClearGov that they will input into this system. So residents can go in and put in, say, what do your tax dollars go for? And you can put in the amount of your tax dollars. So you can put in that dollar amount and it will break it down instantly into all the different categories of where your tax dollars go. You can look at demographic information. You can see where we stand in comparison to other communities with regard to our finances. Internally, it's an incredible tool for budgeting purposes. Again, this is being sponsored by the CFO, so I'll have him add to it if I miss anything. But as far as an internal mechanism for a number of different areas for budgeting, it will be a huge help to us because we can look at breakdowns that right now we cannot do electronically. We have to do by pulling together all different systems off of Munis. This makes it much easier to see it. The slide that I put up there just shows you some of the things you can do. Again, you can look at demographics, economics, finances, revenues, expenditures, comparative figures. Even from our perspective, when we sit down with the unions, it will be extremely helpful to be able to look at what the dollar costs are on a per person basis, or either a per capita, a household basis, or even a dollar basis, to see where we stand with regards to our expenditures in various departments. So it's a financial tool to be used internally. Externally, it's an enormous transparency tool. A number of towns were able to apply to the state under an IT grant for funding for this system. We were not eligible because we had already received a grant for $28,000 for an online permitting system, which made us ineligible for this round of funding. This company is offering to give us this platform for the cost that is in the article right now, $6,375 for the first year. That gets training set up, gets the whole system going. After that, it's an ongoing annual cost of $7,500 that we would be building into our operational budget through IT.
Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any then? This is a majority. All those in favor, raise their hands. All those opposed? It is a vote. Article 27, to see if the town meeting will vote to repurpose $40,000 from the remaining balance of $61,076.91 for the appropriation approved under Article 20 of the May 3rd, 2016 annual town meeting, number 302013-581376, the purchase and installation of windows at the Auburn Public Library for the purchase and installation of an HVAC heat pump at the Auburn Public Library, or to act on anything thereof, yeah. Mr. Dufour.
Mr. Moderator, Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. I forgot to say that on the last article. I move that the town meeting vote to repurpose $40,000 from the remaining balance, $61,076.91, of the appropriation approved under Article 20 of the May 3rd, 2016 annual town meeting, account number 302013-581376, the purchase and installation of windows at the Auburn Public Library, for the purchase and installation of an HVAC heat pump at the Auburn Public Library.
Is there a second? There is a second. Anybody have a question or a comment? Not seeing any though? Any? Then all those in favor, please raise your hands. Those opposed? It is a vote. Article 28. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $9,000 from the dog license fees for the purpose of installing monitoring cameras at the Kathleen Sabrina Animal Compound, or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Ken Fairbanks Jr., Precinct 3. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $9,000 from dog license fees for the purpose of installing monitoring cameras at the Kathleen Sabina Animal Compound.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Hopper.
Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. I'm just wondering what the purpose of the cameras are. Is it security? Is it monitoring the dogs? What are we paying for?
Right behind you.
Hi, good evening. Darlene Coyle, DDIS Director. So the money that we are requesting from town meeting is for the kennel operation. The kennel is a 24/7 operation, meaning that there's responsibilities for animals and responding to emergencies at all times. The cameras will be put in place to enhance safety for our staff and the animals housed in the kennel.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Yes.
Doug Nelson, Precinct 2. Who's going to be monitoring these cameras?
So the cameras will be a live feed to the police station and also connected to the existing cameras that we have in all of the other town buildings and facilities.
Thank you. Anybody else? Not seeing anything? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, it is a vote.
Thank you.
Article 29, to see if the town meeting will vote to amend the Town of Auburn zoning bylaws, Section 3.7, prohibited uses, by adding subsection 3.7.7, recreational marijuana as follows. Recreational marijuana. The Town of Auburn prohibits operation of all types of non-medical marijuana establishments as defined in the GI 940G1, including marijuana cultivators, marijuana testing facilities, marijuana products manufacturers, marijuana retailers, or any other type business, licensed marijuana business, or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Baker.
Yes, Charles Baker, Precinct 3. I move that the town meeting vote to amend the Town of Auburn zoning bylaws, Section 3.7, prohibited uses, by adding subsection 3.7.7, recreational marijuana as follows. 3.7, prohibited uses. 3.7.7, recreational marijuana. The Town of Auburn prohibits operations of all types of non-medical marijuana establishments as defined in General Laws, Chapter 94G, Number 1, including marijuana cultivators, marijuana testing facilities, marijuana product manufacturers, marijuana retailers, or any other type of licensed marijuana businesses.
Is there a second? There is a second. Is there an amendment?
Yes, there is, Mr. Moderator. I would also move to amend the motion for Article 29 to remove the words non-medical.
Is there a second? There is a second.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Baker.
I just want, this bylaw is based on the ballot question. And the ballot question did not have the words non-medical in it. And therefore, the bylaw cannot have the words non-medical in it. And that's why the amendment is necessary.
Any questions on the amendment? Mr. Hopper.
Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. So then we're prohibiting any type of dispensaries, including medical? No? What am I?
No.
Mr. Go
May
ahead.
I, Ms. Moderator? The November of 16 statewide ballot question was regarding recreational marijuana. This has nothing to do with medical marijuana. This is specific to recreational marijuana. So I think we need to be clear because it is a little confusing. There are 3 additional citizens petitions that are coming up that are related to medical marijuana. This is the only one on here related to recreational. The issue is that when the ballot question passed statewide in November of 16, the way the ballot question was written at the time was that any municipality could opt out of recreational marijuana facilities as defined under Mass General Law for that specific section. So the words you see in there were specific right out of the law. And it was an option for communities to opt out of allowing those facilities at the ballot. The issue is you can't change a bylaw by ballot. So you also, in addition to the ballot question, have to have a town meeting vote to change your zoning bylaw. So the question was put on the Auburn town election ballot on May 16th, 2016, because it was allowed under the law to give the voters the opportunity to decide what they wanted to do. That ballot question in Auburn passed by approximately 64% to 36% to prohibit all recreational establishments. Again, the words non-medical came in later when the planning board looked at this. They added the words non-medical to try to clarify for the public that this was not related to medical, but we had been advised by town council as well as the Attorney General's office that the zoning bylaw has to parallel and mirror the ballot question exactly. The ballot question did not have those words in it. The ballot question was developed by several communities across the state. It was approved by the Attorney General's office, and that's the language that we had to use.
But it's not clear. Despite the title, it's not clear. The title says one thing, the language says something else.
That is Mass General law. That is taken right out of Mass General law. I would tell you that this whole issue with recreational marijuana in Mass General law has been very complicated. The law has changed 3 times since the November 16th ballot. The language in the law has changed 3 times. The first ballot question had a law that was by petition that was voted in Massachusetts. In Auburn, it barely passed by about 1.14% for the recreational marijuana. In June of last year or July of last year, the Massachusetts legislature and the governor changed the language and amended it and came up with some new language. And then this past April, last month, the Cannabis Control Commission came out with their regulations that further defined it. This will most likely continue to change as conversations take place across the state and questions come up about pieces of the legislation now law that are not clear that are going to end up being decided in the courts. Right now, the town had no choice when they put the ballot question on but to follow Mass General law as was written.
Well, the town has no choice as to the language. But
Correct.
we do have a choice as how we vote.
Yes, but you were talking about the language not being clear, so I'm trying to address the fact that we can't change that language.
Sure. Next.
Greg Bowling, Precinct 4. So the bylaw references Chapter 94G, Section 1. Does that define recreational marijuana usage is separate from medical in the general law?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So then our language is really immaterial since we are referencing recreational marijuana as defined in Mass General law.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson on the amendment?
Well, amendment and the question. Would you prefer I speak to
I
the
prefer
question?
the amendment.
I'll wait.
Right now, I'll give you.
I'll wait.
Mr. Dufour on the amendment?
So Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. So just so that we're clear, Julie, if we don't amend to change the wording of the bylaw, what are the repercussions to the town if that doesn't pass?
That's a great question. So Mass General law provides language for municipalities to opt out of recreational marijuana facilities. If this does not pass this evening as a bylaw amendment, we still have a moratorium that was voted by town meeting in May of 2016 that will, in the fall of 2017, that will take us through December of this year. So by December of this year, we would have 2 options. We would plan to come back with a bylaw amendment that would regulate recreational marijuana similar to medical marijuana if this failed. Or if that we were not able to regulate it through the regulatory process, which is public hearings and planning board, then it is my understanding from talking to town council and from other experts around the state that if the town did nothing, then recreational marijuana would be allowed because because the law allows for it unless you opt out.
Mr. Dufour?
I'm sorry, just to follow, I apologize, I wasn't clear. I was referring more to the amendment to the article that's before us tonight of removing the terminology of non-medical.
I apologize, I got a step ahead of you. If the amendment that removed the words non-medical didn't pass, the Attorney General likely will not approve of the bylaw because it doesn't mirror the ballot question that was approved in May. Thank you.
Anybody else on the amendment? Let's see. Mr. Westerman.
My feeling is that we should get this thing amended that Ms. Jacobson talked about, because you get recreation marijuana any way you want to take it, we're going to end up with a lot of problems. So my recommendation is please accept it Ms. Jacobson's way. Thank you.
Anybody else? So we're going to vote on the amendment? Oh.
I apologize, Mr. Moderator. I'm Joe Lyons, Precinct 3. I'm really confused now. I think we owe it to the voters of the town to word this exactly how they voted, so that we can vote to respect their vote. So how does this have to be worded so it is exactly how they voted, and then how do we support their votes?
If town meeting votes to accept the amendment and remove the words non-medical, then that's exactly what would happen. The bylaw would then mirror the exact vote that was taken by the town in May of 17, and you would be following the will of the voters from that election. I'm sorry, the percentage of that election, the percentage of that election was just shy of 64% to a little bit over 36%. So 64 to 36%. 64% in favor of prohibiting recreational marijuana facilities and establishments as defined in Mass General Law, which were recreational. Again, that language has since been cleaned up by the legislature because it was confusing, but this is very clear that this is just for recreational. Under the law, you cannot ban medical marijuana anyway.
Anybody else with a question? Yes, sir.
Dennis Natoli, Precinct 1. Just to make this clear, again, because everyone's, I think, still having a problem with it, and to make sure this is defensible by the zoning board, wouldn't you want to state specifically, instead of just taking out non-medical, to put in recreational in its spot?
Through the moderator, Matthew Benoit, town planner. So unfortunately, we can't amend that word. The whole purpose, the reason that non-medical went in there in the first place is just to help differentiate from a medical marijuana bylaw that we already have. So we were thinking, just try to help us out while we're reading it. But as we learned from the Attorney General and Town Council, that word can't be there. And we're just going to be using the cited reference of General Law, Chapter 94G, to define recreational marijuana.
Anybody else? Then we're going to vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All those opposed? It is a vote. Now we'll go back to the question. As amended, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Brent Anderson, Precinct 5. This bylaw is outrageous. In the 2016 presidential election with high voter turnout, very contentious election, many people coming out to vote, the town of Auburn voters voted for recreational marijuana. Subsequently, a handful of people in town got together to pass a bylaw with far fewer voters to ban recreational marijuana. This is not democracy. This is not the way it should be done. This is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Greg Bowling, Precinct 4. Can we clarify, just for a distinction, that the first election that was referenced legalized across the state recreational marijuana possession use, and that this bylaw does not affect any of that, but however, is specifically the operation of dispensary facilities, cultivation facilities of commercial nature within the town of Auburn, similar to the bylaw that regulates the medical marijuana dispensaries that we have on the books today. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, if I may, yes, that is correct. This is not only constitutional, this is according to the law that was passed by the voters of Massachusetts in November of 16. When the voters in Massachusetts passed this law in November 16, the language was very specific in that ballot question that municipalities had the right to opt out by ballot. It gave that right to the residents of any community. That right was given to the residents of this community, and the residents of this community chose to ban it. Again, what they chose to ban were the recreational facilities, and to make it more understandable, even though it's not the language, it's commercial facilities. As you see here, it's cultivation, it is sales, it's testing, it is not personal use, recreational use, or the ability to grow plants in your home. None of that can be changed. That is the law, that is what was voted in November. This bylaw follows exactly the course of the law. I will say, again, because this is an ever-changing situation, that there are new definitions for recreational marijuana facilities in the regulations that were promulgated in April of 18. And that went into even further explanation of different types of recreational facilities. But we are following the law as it was written at the time of the ballot question, which is the option that we had before us. So the Attorney General will be the final say in this. Communities across the state are facing the same issue, that many communities went and took a ballot question prior to 2 changes in the law, and it actually will remain to be seen down the road if these changes will get changed again. But right now, this does not affect personal use, personal grow, or recreational use for adults only.
Yes.
Just as Tom Kais, Precinct 4, just as a point of clarification, we have the moratorium that's for the 18 months that, as you said, brings us to the end of the year. If we don't pass this bylaw change, that leaves the moratorium in effect, but still effectively leaves it legal to open a recreational dispensary here in town. Would that be correct?
Mr. Moderator, with the moratorium in place until December, recreational facilities cannot locate here. Even if this vote were to pass tonight, they cannot locate here while the temporary moratorium is in effect. That is in effect to give the opportunity to the town and the planning board to come up with a bylaw that would need to regulate recreational marijuana should it fail. If nothing is done and there is no further bylaw done for regulating it, then recreational marijuana facilities and establishments would be allowed here once that moratorium expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hopper.
Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. For the record, I'm against the change of this bylaw. But I do have a question. Has to do with tax revenue. If we exclude retail establishments, are we losing any local sales tax by doing that, or losing potential sales tax?
Under the law now, for a recreational facility located in a municipality, there's a requirement to enter into a host community agreement. Under the host community agreement, there's a maximum of 3% of, I believe it's net revenues, I could be wrong, it could be gross revenues, that could be negotiated with that community. So you are potentially losing a host community agreement for revenues, as well as there would be a local option vote that would have to be taken to provide for a municipal tax on top of the state tax.
So we lose potential revenue on that sort of establishment. We're also, the way the bylaw, the proposed amendment, we're also excluding any sort of testing, which would be any sort of scientific facility as well, right?
Again, yes, that is what the bylaw reads. That is what the law read as far as giving a town the option to prohibit such facilities. We had to reference the law as written, and that is how the law was written, and it does include those testing facilities. Again, the newer regulations give different levels of recreational facilities that even further define testing, but as it was written at the time, this is specifically word for word as the law was written and approved by the voters.
And if we were to allow retail establishments, we could still set up same sort of criterion that we do with liquor stores. In other words, we limit the number that we have in town and where they are.
We could work to develop a bylaw to regulate recreational marijuana similar to RMDs, which is medical marijuana. Again, it would require a vote of town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready for the vote? Oh. Mr. Anderson.
John Anderson, Precinct 4. This is in a very much a evolving process right now. As our town manager has stated, there are changes happening every month, every meeting, and I question why we're voting on this tonight when we really don't know what the future holds. We know that we can't have recreational marijuana until the end of the year, past the end of the year. And we have another town meeting in the fall to clean up details on the budget and to deal with extra issues. So that, to me, would be the time to have a better feel for what's going on in this industry. I would hate to see us lose an opportunity for revenue. And I really am concerned that 675 people who showed up at a town election last year dictate the future of this for everyone else. I mean, compared to the 9,455 people that showed up at the presidential election and voted over 50% in favor of recreational marijuana. I think we need to take a little bit of time and figure this stuff out. Whether you're opposing it or you're for it, I think that we're acting a little bit prematurely right now. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, you provided me with a perfect opportunity to remind everybody that the election this year will be held 2 weeks from today, on Tuesday, the 15th of May. So I would hope a lot more people will go out and vote on that day.
It would be nice. I mean, a total of 1,063 people voted in that May election last year, and there's a lot of effect from the people that sit here from those elections, and they're very important. Thank you.
Are we ready for the question? We're on Article 29, which is a two-thirds vote. Okay? All those opposed to the question, raise your hand. Okay, I think we better do a count on this then, please. So if the counters will come forward, this is Section 1, Section 2, Section 3. Mr. Moffett, we have one here, one up above, and I don't know how many down there. If you're against it, please stand up. If you're opposed to the question, please stand up.
Section has 8 opposed.
Thank you. Oh. You want to count the section just to verify his? In the middle section, if you were against it, please stand up. If you're against it, against accepting this article.
You guys change your minds? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. It's still 14.
I think that works. We're convincing him I won't hold it.
Now, Mrs. Gabry? Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please stand up of passing this amendment.
$17.
Wait a minute, I got to announce that. 57%, right? Okay, the motion passed. The vote was 57 to 25. Thank you. Article 30. Huh? Article 30, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for the enactment of special legislation as written on page 78 of the annual town warrant, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion on Article 30? John?
Okay, John Stencil, Precinct 5. I move the town meeting vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for the enactment of a special legislation to authorize the relocation of Faith Ave and the conveyance of remnant parcels of real property remaining therefore as printed in the May 1st, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
Is there a second? There is a second. Any questions on Article 30? Oh, John, are you there?
What are we doing again?
Mr. Benoit?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So what this is the Auburn Planning Board approved a subdivision project for Diamond Auto Group off Faith Avenue. The subdivision was, well, this is an existing conditions aerial that you'll see. It's kind of a sketch. They have a Faith Ave winds in a giant S-turn, so to speak, and separates their campus. What they were proposing is to build a new roadway that would help align Faith Avenue and isolate their campus without it being divided by a roadway. What the article shows is that this section here would become, the mouse is showing it, the new public portion of Faith Avenue, and this P-shaped remainder of the road would be transferred into Diamond Auto Group's ownership.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Yes.
Right.
Bob Platukis, Precinct 1. A similar thing was proposed a couple of years ago when Mr. Purdy was here, and I spoke at the select board meeting. Are we giving land away? How much a roadway and how much land is that we're giving? Are we giving that to them? Are they paying the town? This is an awful lot of land. If you make that road, is a lot longer than that little stretch going across there. Is the town being compensated any money for that, all that land that we would be giving to Diamond? And I brought this up probably 4 years ago.
Sure. So there's a lot of parts to that question. So 4 years ago when this came up, I believe it was 2013 even, at that time Diamond proposed this similar commercial subdivision. And they realized that they had a bunch of wetland issues to deal with first. So they withdrew their application, filed with the Conservation Commission last year, and received an order of conditions for a lot of wetland remediation work that was needed on the site. And it was only after that the planning board would review the project again, making sure that you had conservation approval first. Now, as far as compensation for the land, we're talking about we'll call it an irregular shaped lot, if it were to be left that way. I don't know if it would garner too much interest from too many other property owners other than Diamond. And at that time, I believe we may be looking at a 30B process for removal of this property for bidders, and it might even be an auction scenario if I'm not mistaken. So you'd be selling it off at a low price to only one party who might be interested in this. So that being the case, even so, if this is one parcel, the proposed roadway that would be built is 370 feet, 24 feet wide of full road standards according to our subdivision regulations. It's going to cost them a pretty penny to build it and then turn it over to the town. So the cost that they're putting into the new roadway far exceeds what we could get if we sold the parcel that's left over.
Yes.
They could cut off a chunk of land and exchange it with us on a parcel there. I can see through that one already. And that would be, the town would still own a nice chunk of land that they could sell to someone else. We're getting the short end of this by not getting some compensation here.
if you measure the acreage of all that land that road makes up, it adds up to a lot of money.
So, through the moderator, that, if that parcel were to be isolated as is, it would definitely be a non-conforming lot according to this zoning district?
I would say then they let them have that land and cut off a chunk of theirs in a better lot for us, the town.
Mr. Coyle.
Mr. Moderator, if I could, I just want to express that DPW is fully in support of this project. Faith Ave is currently in disrepair. There's approximately 1,700 feet that would need to be reconstructed. It's a very circuitous roadway that offers very limited benefit to the motoring public. By realigning the roadway, it would be more of a direct route for the public, and by abandoning that section of roadway, it would eliminate a $125,000 project, which would be the cost to reconstruct that section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Dufour.
Mr. Moderator, Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. I just want to confirm that, and because it was my only concern from reading the article and not having the visual, so you will still be able to go from Route 20 to Route 12 via Faith Ave. The way the article was written, I was concerned that it was just going to like come up from Route 12 and dead end, and Diamond was getting the whole thing. Knowing that we are still going to be able to get through, and you said that they are picking up the whole cost for building the roadway connecting the two parts.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Moderator.
Any others? Yes, sir.
May I add something, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, go ahead, Matt.
As Ms. Jacobson pointed out, I just want to make it clear that, even though this article is before us today on the warrant, there's still special legislation that has to follow. I just want to read this for us. So, draft legislation would have to be presented for approval by the Board of Selectmen that's for inclusion on the warrant. Okay? And if it passes, shall authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the Great and General Court to enact special legislation to authorize the town to accept as a new town way the roadway shown as Parcel B, which is the new road, and to discontinue a town way portion of Faith Avenue as shown as discontinued, and that's the P shape. So there's still another step here in which the Selectmen would have to petition the General Court.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Joe Lyons, Precinct 3. My only question is, two questions actually. Has anyone talked to the people in the neighborhood? Is this new roadway going to make it safer for those people who live there? And is it also going to decrease or increase traffic flow for disturbing them?
Sure, thank you. I'd like to defer to the DPW director just as far as safety, but as far as public notification during the subdivision public hearing process, abutters within 300 feet from the property were notified. And I believe there were 3 houses located to the west of this proposed roadway that have been since purchased by Diamond. So, in addition to that, I believe you have Faith Church and a couple other buildings.
Mr. Coyle?
Relative to the safety, I would say that the roadway currently, as I mentioned, is a very windy road, so this would be more of a direct access, and also the condition of the existing road is in poor conditions, and obviously this would be a newly constructed roadway, which would be much safer. The new roadway would have to go through the normal construction process of a subdivision, so it has to undergo the inspections and then go through the acceptance process through the Board of Selectmen, and also eventually through town meeting members to accept the roadway. Thank you.
Anybody else? John?
Diamond has slowly been buying all of those properties that are there. There's no more residents over there. And I believe that most of the damage on that road was done by Diamond. It looks like we should do it.
We ready for the question? All those opposed, please raise your hands. All those in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Before we go on with Article 31, I just want to mention, no. Let me read Article 31. To see if the town meeting will vote to amend the Town of Auburn zoning bylaws. Remove 9.3.13.2 site restriction subsection A, an RMD facility with or without cultivation operations cannot be located within 1 mile of any other RMD. Remove 9.3.13.2 site restrictions, section F. No RMD shall be located within the Zone 2 Aquifer and Watershed Protection Overlay District or add on anything relative thereto. Mrs. Gabriel.
Ellen Gabriel, Precinct 1. I move the town meeting vote to amend the Town of Auburn zoning bylaws as printed in the May 1st, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
Thank you. Was there a second? There is a second. Now, this is a citizen's petition. Mr. LaLiberty is one of the petitioners, and he wants to give a brief talk on 31, 32, and 33. So anytime you're ready.
Yeah, it's not going to let you access it here. If we had known, we could put it on the desktop for you.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Martin.
I would just like to clarify if Mr. LaLiberty is speaking as a selectman or is that as the petitioner?
Well, excuse me. Go ahead.
As a resident, not as a selectman.
Ms. Holstrom?
That's fine. I can just
Mr. Moderator, just a quick question. These petitions relate to recreational marijuana? No, what is the RMD?
As the town voted just now to ban recreational marijuana, RMD in the bylaws references medical marijuana, so these bylaws would apply to medical only.
Is there a way to? It doesn't matter. It's not going to work. All right, so the next three articles are relating to non-recreational dispensaries, medical marijuana dispensaries, as used to treat patients. The first zoning amendment would be we would like to remove an RMD facility with or without cultivation operations located within 1 mile of any other R&D
The reason initially for the bylaw was that RMDs would be forced to compete with each other if they were too close. The reason for the repeal is that no other businesses are zoned this way, including liquor stores or pharmacies. In addition, no RMD shall be located within the Zone 2 Aquifer and Watershed Protection Overlay District. The original reasoning for the bylaw was that we were unsure what chemicals are used and produced in the growing process. The reason for the repeal is that we now know there have been no cases of damage or contamination caused by these facilities. One reported case in Colorado was found to be a satirical article. In addition, THC is not a water-soluble chemical, and neither are any of the chemicals involved in these areas. Zoning Amendment 2, amending Section 9.3.13.2, site restrictions, subsection C, to read, no RMDs to be located within 100 feet of any residential district or within 100 feet of any active, pre-existing, or non-confirming residential uses within non-residential districts. Distances shall be measured in a straight line from property. The original reasoning for the bylaw, at the time we were not sure that we might be dealing with recreational facilities, and we were not sure what the state was going to do with laws. The state has put a restriction of 100 feet on both medical and recreational facilities. We're only dealing with medical facilities and believe that 100 feet will be enough for those. This restriction does not exist for pharmacies or liquor stores currently. In addition, for subsection I of the same amendment, hours of operation for any RMD shall be established by the planning board, but in no event shall said facilities be open to the public between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., including delivery services. And RMD must ensure that trees, bushes, and other foliage outside the RMD do not allow for a person or persons to conceal themselves from sight, as outlined under 105 CMR 725.110A11, therefore requiring non-obstructive landscaping within the provisions of Section 11 of the Auburn zoning bylaw. The reasoning for the bylaw was that we did not know if we would be dealing with recreational facilities at the time. We are dealing with medical facilities now, essentially a pharmacy where people will be picking up prescriptions as prescribed by a doctor. Expanding the hours will make it easier for patients who are already struggling with some form of illness or disability and may have to travel to these facilities. Zoning Amendment 3 is to remove 9.3.13.2, site restriction subsection D. No RMD without cultivation operations shall have a gross floor area of less than 1,500 square feet or in excess of 7,499 square feet. In addition, we'd like to remove 9.3.13.2, site restriction subsection E. No RMD with cultivation operations shall have a gross floor area of less than 7,500 square feet or in excess of 50,000 square feet. These restrictions have not been applied to other pharmacies, and most dispensaries are within these sizes limits, and this bylaw is not necessary.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Holstrom?
My question is, has the planning board or the zoning board or the master plan committee taken a position on these articles?
Mr. Benoit?
Through the moderator, the planning board has taken a position on the articles and has voted unanimously not to recommend these articles for warrant consideration.
Any other questions? Yes.
Good evening, Tom Kaz, Precinct 4. Just a question, what part of town does encompasses Zone 2 Aquifer and Watershed Protection Area?
Mr. Benoit?
That's tough to see. All right. So this generally encompasses Technology Drive, Millbury Street, Route 20, that corner. That's one of the zones. And the other area is north on Route 12 on the westerly side. This is where Polar Beverages, R.E. Michael, the former Candlepin bowling alley used to be.
Thank you. Mr. Hopper.
Sorry, I turned my back for a moment. I might answer my question. I was just trying to figure out if we don't amend what the restrictions are currently. I think you might have just answered it. I apologize that I was...
Sure. Our bylaws currently read that an RMD facility with or without cultivation operations cannot be located within 1 mile of any other RMD. That no RMD without cultivation operations shall have a gross floor area of less than 1,500 square feet or in excess of 7,499. Reason being there's a sprinkler threshold requirement at 7,500 square feet. The next one reads, no RMD with cultivation shall have a gross floor area of less than 7,500 square feet or in excess of 50,000 square feet. Subsection F reads that no RMD shall be located within the Zone 2 Aquifer and Watershed Protection Overlay District. Make sure I'm getting them all. I missed subsection C, excuse me. No RMD is to be located within 250 feet of any residential district. The rest of this section remains the same. And subsection L reads that hours of operation for any RMD. No event shall be open to the public between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. The amendment proposes 10 p.m.
Ms. Holstrom?
I move that we postpone this article indefinitely.
Is there a second? There is a second. Mr. Baker?
Article 31, just 31, you're doing one? I don't think you can, but I want to say we're doing 31. I don't think so, although it would be nice.
All those in favor of postponing this indefinitely, please raise your hand. All those for? Postponing it indefinitely? Wait a minute. All those in favor of postponing this indefinitely, please raise their hand. All those opposed to postponing this indefinitely, please raise their hand. It passes. Ms. Holstrom? No, wait. Okay, Article 32. To see if the town meeting will vote to amend Town of Auburn zoning bylaws. Amend 9.3.13.2, site restrictions, subsection C to read, no RMD is to be located within 100 feet of any residential district or within 100 feet of any active, pre-existing, non-conforming residential uses within non-residential districts. Distances shall be measured in a straight line from the property boundary line to the property boundary line. Amend 9.3.13.2, site restrictions, subsection L, to read, hours of operation for any RMD shall be established by the planning board, but in no event shall said facilities be open to the public between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., including any home delivery service. RMD must ensure that trees, bushes, and other foliage outside of the RMD do not allow for a person or persons to conceal themselves from sight, as outlined under 105 CMR. 725.110A11. therefore requiring non-obstructive lands within the provisions of Section 11 of the Auburn zoning bylaw or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Carla Morano, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to amend the Town of Auburn zoning bylaws as printed in the May 1st, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
There's a second. Ms. Holstrom?
I move to postpone this article indefinitely.
Is there a second? There is a second. All those in favor of postponing indefinitely, please raise their hand. All those against postponing indefinitely? The motion is postponed indefinitely. Yeah. Article 33, to see if the town meeting will vote to amend Town of Auburn zoning bylaws. Remove section 9.3.13.2, site restriction, subsection D. No RMD without cultivation operations shall have a gross floor area of less than 1,500 square feet or in excess of 7,499 square feet. Remove section 9.3.13.2, site restriction, subsection E. No RMD with cultivation operations shall have a gross floor area of less than 7,500 square feet or in excess of 50,000 square feet or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Morano.
Mr. Moderator, Rocco Morano, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to amend the Town of Auburn zoning bylaws as printed in the May 1, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
There's a second. Ms. Holstrom. Yeah.
I move to postpone this article indefinitely.
Is there a second? There is a second. All those in favor of postponing indefinitely? All those for postponing indefinitely, yeah. All those in favor of postponing this indefinitely? All those against indefinitely? It is a vote. Need another motion now to, gentlemen?
I move that we adjourn.
Second? All those in favor?
I'm sorry. Adjourn, dissolve, whatever floats your boat.